co-signed by the Honorable George Murugara, MP, on behalf of the majority party, and the Honorable Dr. Otienda Molo, Senior Counsel, CBS MP, on behalf of the minority party, conveying, among other things, the joint decision to establish the committee, the composition of the committee, and the respective agenda raised by the parties. Further, honorable members, the notification provided for the joint secretaries to the committee, as well as the agreed mandate of the committee and a framework agreement for the conduct of the bipartisan talks, as adopted by the committee, setting out the general structure of the talks and rules procedure. In this regard, honorable members, the co-chairpersons of the committee requested the speakers of the Houses of Parliament to formally recognize the committee and to support and facilitate their work. As speakers of the Houses of Parliament, we allowed the efforts being made towards strengthening consultation, dialogue, and consensus building between the majority and the minority parties. We are convinced that this inclusive approach will ensure an amicable resolution of the issues identified in a bid to have a national conversation for the good of the current and future generations. Indeed, it is commendable that the committee has adopted a hybrid approach of conducting the talks through a parliamentary process, as well as the involvement of experts and other stakeholders outside Parliament. Indeed, honorable members, under the respective standing orders of the Houses of Parliament, a committee of this nature is by and large formally recognized through the passage of a joint resolution by the Houses. It is through such joint resolution that the membership of such committee is outlined and its terms of reference, the timelines within which the committee is to discharge its mandate and report to the Houses. However, honorable members, as you are aware, at the time of receipt of the communication, the Houses of Parliament were on recess. The respective standing orders of the Houses of Parliament require the speakers to cause the transmission of any message received at a time when the Houses are not in session to every member and later report such messages to the Houses when it resumes. Honorable members, in this regard and appreciating the critical task that the committee is to undertake, the speakers of the Houses of Parliament jointly resolved to formally recognize the committee and to appraise the Houses upon resumption of sittings. This was premised on the need to allow the commencement of business of the committee during the recess period. As you are further aware, honorable members, in the joint notification, we did observe that we had earlier on received a draft motion from the leadership of the majority party in Parliament seeking the establishment and recognition of the committee. In this regard, we urge the leadership of the majority party and the minority party, as a matter of urgency, to harmonize the text of the draft motion to pave the way for issuance of the notice of motion and its consideration by the Houses of Parliament as soon as the Houses resumed after recess. Honorable members, to this end, it is expected that the leadership of the majority and minority parties shall proceed to formalize the recognition of the committee in the manner prescribed in the standing orders of both Houses. In conclusion, honorable members, I wish to reiterate that as speakers of the Houses of Parliament, we commit to facilitating the work of the committee as it embarks on executing this important task. Indeed, we shall, upon the joint resolution by the Houses, authorize the respective clerks of the Houses to facilitate the committee like every other committee of Parliament with a secretariat and any other logistical support necessary for the effective discharge of the mandate of the committee. Honorable members, we are also aware that there is ongoing debate that the committee may also prefer extra-parliamentary processes in conducting the bipartisan engagements. This is a matter that the committee may explore and look for ways of finding its place in the joint resolution of the Houses. Finally, in the spirit of bipartisanship, I encourage the members of the committee to put the interests of the nation ahead of every other consideration when considering matters presented. Indeed, I appreciate the great sacrifice the two co-chairs, the Honorable George Murugara and the Honorable Dr. Otienda Molo, and their respective teams are making to ensure the conclusion of the prodigal's task bestowed upon them. In this regard, I quote renowned author James Allen, who said, and I quote, "He who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. And he who would attain highly must also sacrifice greatly." I thank you. Yes, Honorable Ichungwa, Majority Leader.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that very detailed communication. And Honorable Speaker, you will remember some time back I did share with the House our draft proposal on the motion that defined the mandate of this bipartisan committee. And following your recognition of this committee, as you said, during the recess, Honorable Speaker, we do appreciate that indeed, as you have stated, it's only up to when this House formally approves that committee and gives it the formal mandate that they will be able to seriously embark on work. And I do remember, Honorable Speaker, yesterday in the House Business Committee, you did challenge myself and the Leader of Minority to take up the role or the leadership role of ensuring that this committee begins its work, formal work, and concludes expeditiously. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I do want to beg that the Leader of Minority, who's just walked in now, and the leadership in their coalition will be able to work with speed, to work with us if they have a draft motion that they can share so that the bipartisan committee can consider, and we have one synchronized draft motion that we can then bring to the House for approval. And as you did indicate yesterday, Honorable Speaker, and sentiments that are shared by many people in the country, that it is time that we concluded this matter of the bipartisan talks. There are constituents in this country, like those of Banisa constituency, who are suffering without a member of parliament. We are almost at the verge of a constitutional crisis, having not an electoral commission in place. And therefore, the earlier we're able to expedite some of these issues, the better. Therefore, I want to beseech the minority leadership to engage with their leadership and be able to come up with a draft motion that we can then be able to sit and agree on one synchronized motion, which then we will be able to bring to the House. And I believe this is something that we can do even within a week or two. And I therefore beseech the minority leadership to take up that role and be able to help the country move forward. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
Order. Maybe I should allow the minority leader if he has anything to say. You remember our order, Okello? You are not the minority leader.
Thank you, the Honorable Speaker. Well, I appreciate the fact that you recognized the need for me to say a word or two. Mr. Speaker, I don't have the benefit of having listened to your full communication on the matter at hand. All the same.
It was a replication of what we discussed in House Business.
All the same. The matter of bipartisan talks has, of course, gained public notoriety. I don't think there's anyone who can claim not to understand what's going around. Mr. Speaker, you will recall from the very outset when this matter came up here, I did commit on behalf of the Azimio coalition that we shall do whatever it takes to make these talks progress and succeed. I believe we have done so far. Mr. Speaker, you know, talks of this nature are delicate, and therefore they must be handled with lots of care. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that there have been bottlenecks on the path of these talks, but to cut the long story short, even as we speak, there is still some form of misunderstanding as to whether this committee requires a motion that is envisaged in your communication, or for it to acquire some life or legal capacity. There's a school of thought that holds the talks don't require that kind of motion. Of course, there's another school of thought which my friend, the Honorable Chungwa, ascribes to, which holds that these talks can only be given life through a motion passed in this House. So we need to bridge that gap. And therefore, I think your communication sets the ground, really, for this, for thrashing out those sticking issues so that we move forward in one accord. It's important. And again, Mr. Speaker, as has been put very clearly, these talks have dragged on for too long. In fact, they haven't even started, in earnest. And in fact, Kenyans have developed fatigue over the talks. There are many Kenyans who have already lost interest in those bipartisan talks. So it behoves all of us, if you want to rescue them, to move with speed, but move with speed in good faith. Otherwise, for now, Mr. Speaker, I take it that your communication sets the ground for us to engage further. Thank you very much. God bless.
Honorable Ichungwa and Honorable Wandai, you have been given the rare and unenviable privilege of leading this House. You must show leadership. It is not enough for the two of you to come and prostrate yourselves before the House and engage in unproductive lamentations. I want to encourage you, the two of you, the 7 members from either side you nominated are your nominees. And you must guide them, you must show leadership, and you must lead. Because the country is looking at this House to sort out this issue. If the head of the House is crying, what will the children do? So I want to encourage both of you. I don't want this matter to keep resurfacing on the floor. You have offices given to you by Parliament. You have staff given to you by Parliament. You have members who work under you. Sit together and get this matter moving. And I want also to encourage you. Tell your co-chairs, I do not understand the logic of co-chairs sitting next to each other in a meeting, writing endless letters to each other. Call them to order and encourage them that they have been given a responsibility to discharge and they must discharge it. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 7th June 2023, afternoon sitting. 1, memorandum on the proposed memorandum. Sorry, Honorable Speaker, whatever is typed here does not make sense, so I'll just try to reorder that. 1, the annual report and financial statements for Kenya Tourism Board for the year ended 2018-2019. 3, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. Mwea Rice Mills Limited, National Construction Authority, Kenya Tourism Board, Bombers of Kenya Limited, Postal Corporation of Kenya, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, Warehouse Receipt System Council, Kerio Valley Development Authority, Geothermal Development Company Limited, Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, University of Nairobi, Kenya Pipeline Company Limited, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, Kenya Film Classification Board, Kibabii University, Laikipia University, Kenya Medical Research Institute, Bukura Agricultural College, Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, Kenyatta National Hospital, National Quality Control Laboratory, National Cancer Institute of Kenya, National Employment Authority, Kenya Cultural Center, National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, and the Southeastern Kenya University. 4 is memorandum for the financial year 2023-2024 and the medium-term budget estimates for the judiciary and the Parliamentary Service Commission from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Mutunga.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 7th of June, 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and Livestock on the inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next, Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of County Government Additional Allocation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Okay, yes. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice to the following motion. That this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and Livestock on its inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 7th of June 2023, in the afternoon sitting. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Now, can you, Sergeant or Clerk, if the Minister for Education is within the precincts of Parliament, cause him to enter the chamber. We'll start the questions before 3 o'clock. In the meantime, we go to order number 7. We have a statement I approved from the Honorable Julius Sunguli. Are you ready with it?
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, but the clerk had informed me that it will be tomorrow. But I don't mind if I could read it today, after a short while. After a short while, Mr. Speaker, I'll get the printed copy. Can I approach the chair?
Honorable Sunguli wants 2 minutes to come back to his statement. Let's go to order number 8 before we come back to order number 7. Honorable Sunguli, you better hurry up.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies. Question to be put.
Order, honorable members. Take your seats. Order. I'll now put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Centralized Funds Accounts Committee on the consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Welcome, Minister. We'll come to you shortly. I've given the Honorable Sunguli, he says in 2 minutes he'll be here. He has a personal statement to make on the security situation in his constituency. Meanwhile, like I said yesterday, honorable members, when we go to questions, the questioner has 2 bites, the question and a supplementary, and I'll only allow 2 joyriders on each question. Can somebody tell Honorable Sunguli his statement is already here to come and prosecute it? Wandai, where's your whip? Yes. Honorable Julius Sunguli, I'm told your statement is available here. Tiambati, you have the statement? Sorry, Julius, if you are ambushed, but I got the impression you needed to prosecute your statement.
No, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for your indulgence. I wish to request for a statement, Mr. Speaker, from the Minister in charge of the Interior with respect to the ongoing clashes in Transmara. These last few days have not been peaceful for the people of Kilgoris constituency residing in Nkararo and the North Side locations. There have been clashes, skirmishes, fights, and the total disruption of order in the area. The events have been quite costly. Lives of young people have been lost and their hopes brought to an abrupt end. In this week alone, cattle have been robbed in broad daylight. Sugarcane, now the main crop of the area, has been burnt, occasioning huge losses. And now, houses have been burnt down by very bold arsonists. Mr. Speaker, the fight has been by use of traditional weapons, being bows and arrows. However, there is now a threat of guns being used in this fight. This will escalate matters and, needless to say, will lead to fatalities not witnessed before. The clashes in this area have gone on for too long, and unless a comprehensive solution is found, there does not seem to be any end coming soon. On Monday, the 5th of June, I convened a meeting attended by representatives of the two warring clans, together with the security teams of Transmara. In this meeting, we identified the possible causes of these clashes. In summary, one clan holds that the other has taken away their land. The other clan maintains that no such land was taken. This land dispute arises from the inconclusive manner in which the Ministry of Lands demarcated the boundaries in those sections. In 1985, both a no-sign adjudication section, occupied mainly by the Wasingishu clan, and the Ngararu adjudication section, occupied mainly by the Syria clan, were demarcated to be adjudication sections. Unfortunately, the boundary dividing these sections is not a natural feature, not a river, and not a valley. It is a straight line which is to be determined by GPS. A few years ago, under the leadership of Mr. Natembea, the then regional commissioner of the Rift Valley, a boundary was determined, and apparently it was agreed that a road be built to mark the boundary. This road was constructed and is in place. Unfortunately, this road has created a new dispute. Persons disadvantaged by that say that the road has taken away their land. But the acreage in dispute, Mr. Speaker, is only about 30 acres. This seems to be the bone of contention. The government and we the leaders in Kilgoris, and indeed the county leadership in Narok, should explore a route to reconciling the two clans. And indeed, we have a plan to reconcile the two clans. However, as we wait for this solution, the government must find an end to the fighting and wanton destruction of the property. We recommend that the minister do send a permanent group of GSU and RDU officers to the site, and the community and ourselves are prepared to give land and housing to those officers so that they can deal with the situation adequately. I therefore request for a statement, Mr. Speaker, from the CS of the Interior to explain what he can promptly and urgently do to deal with the lawlessness in this area. I submit.
Thank you, Julius. Who is the Chair of Security? Tongoyo, you transmit that statement to your minister and bring a response in 2 weeks.
I will, Mr. Speaker, and it's just good to note that the honorable member, we come from the same county, so it's an issue that it's quite known to me as well. I've just talked with the CS, is in Turkana as we talk, and actually we had even made an arrangement to visit his office so that we can able to look a quick response to the same.
Very good.
Nevertheless, I'm guided.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, honorable members. We'll go back to order number 7. But before we call the first question, allow me to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of St. Bakita Girls Kiangui, Makueni County. In the public gallery, St. Jude Kiriri from Githurai, Kiambu, Londiani Boys High School from Kipkelion East, Kericho, St. Teresa Girls from Isli, Nairobi. On my behalf and on your own behalf, I welcome the schools to the House of Parliament. Now we go to questions, and I will invite the first question. That's question number 122 of 2023 by the member for Nyakach, Honorable Aduma War. Sorry, Aduma. I have jammed 2 questions, sorry. We start with question 120-2023. Mark Mwenje, member for Embakasi West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question 120 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide records of accounts for all income-generating activities of Mojawan Primary School in Embakasi West constituency for the past 1 year, especially revenue generated via the school swimming pool, studio, and hall? Question 2, clarify whether the ministry competitively recruited the non-teaching staffs that oversee the management of the said income-generating activities. Question 3, explain why the school's board of management is yet to approve projects proposed by the NGCDF or engage the NGCDF committee on the said proposals. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir, and honorable members. The answer to the question is as follows. Umoja One Primary School has only one income-generating activity, which is the swimming pool. The studio is not operational because the school is yet to recruit a competent operator to operate the studio. Also, the hall has never at any given time been hired, so it has never been able to generate any income ever since the time it was built. Honorable Speaker, the swimming pool generates income because runners from neighboring schools use it after paying a fee. Members of the public also use the swimming pool at a fee, particularly during weekends and the public holidays. So far, Honorable Speaker, the swimming pool has generated a total of 8,459,168 from January 2020 to April 2023. The breakdown is given on a monthly basis. I don't have to go to each and every month. So the income, Honorable Speaker, is banked in a designated swimming pool account at the Umoja branch of the Cooperative Bank of Kenya. The account statement for the said account is as provided in my answer and marked Annex 1. The balance so far in the account as at the 6th June 2023 was Kenya shillings 37,046.72. A monthly average, Honorable Speaker, of 192,000 out of the income is used to pay the salaries of employees supporting the swimming pool operations, and the amount normally varies depending on the season. Between 150,000 and 200,000 per month is also used for pool maintenance and chemicals, and also depending on the seasonal demand. Part of the revenue is used to improve the school's infrastructure and resources. In the past 1 year, for example, the sum of Kenya shillings 250,000 has been spent in the installation of water tanks, and also 400,000 on connection of water to the school, as well as another 150,000 on the tiling of the classrooms, and also 200,000 Kenya shillings, which was used for plastering the classrooms. Mr. Speaker, the accounts of the school are audited annually, and for this past year, the audit was concluded in April, and we are as yet to get the report, and I undertake to provide the report to the Member of Parliament once it is referred to me. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that I would like to state from the outset that indeed the ministry does not recruit non-teaching staff of public schools in the country, and according to Section 59P of the Basic Education Act 2013, it is the responsibility of the Board of Management to recruit non-teaching staff. As with all public sector employees, Board of Management are required by law to ensure that the recruitments are done in an open, transparent, and competitive manner. Through the county, our county and sub-county officers, we established that the school is yet to engage in a competitive recruitment of the staff, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have made a directive that the 7 individuals who are working on part-time basis be subjected to a competitive process, and the Board of Management has been able to form an interviewing panel which will be able to interview those who will be able to apply, and already an advert is out for those who will be interested to be recruited on a permanent basis, not as before, because the people who have been working there before are on a part-time basis. The last part of the question, Honorable Speaker, and this one I'm sure the honorable members of Parliament here are very much aware and conversant with, is that the boards of management do not receive and approve proposals from the Constituency Development Fund. According to Section 27 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund 2015, it is the responsibility of the CDF committee to correct and deliberate on project proposals as made in each and every constituency. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, Regulation 11 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Regulations 2016 is clear that the mandate of the Constituency Committee is to consider all project proposals from all wards in the constituency and any other project which the Constituency Committee might consider beneficial in any given financial year. And finally, the school has been able to make an application to the CDF board for funding for the perimeter wall of the school. So that is the answer I wish to submit for question 1.
Thank you, Minister. Mark Mwenje. There you are.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank the Minister, the Cabinet Secretary, for his comprehensive response. My only follow-up to the Cabinet Secretary is that we've had a problem in Nairobi, especially with the reconstitution of some of the school boards in our primary schools, because the county education, I think, board says they don't have sufficient funds, and you have some of these boards even with serving MCAs who have now been re-elected. So could the Cabinet Secretary kindly provide guidance on reconstitution of some of these school boards so that we can mitigate some of the issues that some of the new members of Parliament are facing, considering some were appointed by our predecessors? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, you can answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. The honorable members are aware that the constitution of the committees, both in primary and secondary, we normally have 17 as the number, and the people who recommend those to serve in those particular committees, part of them are actually members of Parliament, because those representing the community interest are appointed or recommended by members of Parliament. And of course, there are also those who represent the parents, who the parents recommend. There are those who also represent the various churches who are recommended by the churches. As a ministry, we also find 17 to be a very high number, and in the coming recommendation, which will be recommending in this House, I think we are recommending that we reduce that number to a number that will be a little bit manageable, because it is a number that is so high and unmanageable, and sometimes the cost was unnecessarily high.
Thank you, Minister. Question 121 of 2023. The member for Samburu East, Jackson Lekutomontare, has written to the Speaker indicating that he has delegated Honorable Eli Letipila to ask the question for him. Is Eli here?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask a question on behalf of Honorable Jackson Lekutomontare, the MP for Samburu East, who is outside the country. His questions to the Cabinet Secretary are: 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of secondary schools in Samburu East constituency that have not been supplied with course books? The second question is: explain why students in some schools in Samburu East constituency complete their secondary school studies without accessing course books. That question is: state when the ministry will avail course books to the affected schools or provide money to the schools to purchase the books. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have indeed established that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, there are 6 schools in Samburu East constituency which have not been supplied with the course books. The schools affected are as follows: Uasu Girls Secondary School, which was registered in 19 December 2018. Narere Boys Secondary School, which was also registered on the 22nd February 2021. Ngaroni Girls Secondary School, which was registered on 22nd March 2021. Seija Boys Secondary School, which was registered on the 22nd February 2021. Tipito Girls Secondary School, which, Honorable Speaker, was registered on the 10th January 2019. Narasa Boys, which was registered on the 16th September 2020. Honorable Speaker, public secondary schools were initially supplied with textbooks in the year 2018. Therefore, new schools that were registered thereafter, that is 2018, have not been supplied with the textbooks. Additionally, there has been no supply to provide for increased enrollment in the schools that were initially supplied in the year 2018. This financial year, the ministry has retained a total of 378 Kenya shillings from the capitation funds provided for in each and every category, each and every runner, for purposes of replenishing the supplies. The replenishment will enable the provision of books to runners in schools that were registered after 2018, and also to schools whose enrollment has grown. And also the second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that indeed there has been no replacement of books in secondary schools since 2018, with the result that runners in newly registered schools have not been provided with the books. However, the ministry is in the process of undertaking a replacement to ensure that all schools are supplied with the books before the end of this term. Mr. Speaker, the affected schools will receive their books before the end of this term, and not only in Samburu, but there are so many other schools which are in this category, and we undertake that we will be able to provide the books out of the funds which I have said, the 378 per annum, to all the schools countrywide. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Ellie. Give the microphone to, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The supplementary question that I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary is, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there is shortage of food in both primary, junior secondary, and high schools of Samburu North constituency? For example, Bargoi Boys, Opiroi Mix, Nachola, Masikita Primary. And can he state which measures he's putting in place to urgently regularize the school feeding programs, which helps in keeping the pastoralist children of Samburu North in schools? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes. Go ahead.
We are aware that we have a shortage of teachers, not only in the affected schools, but quite a number of our schools in each and every part of the country. And this administration, ever since the time we came in, we have been able to employ 36,000 new teachers, and we undertake that we will be able to employ almost an equal number in the next financial year. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that the school feeding program, government provides funds for 26 counties, particularly in the northern part of the country, the arid and semi-arid counties. Those are the schools and the areas that Parliament has been able to give us funds that we engage and provide school feeding programs to almost 2,000 of our runners in those particular areas.
Honorable members, I see the screen is full, but I don't know if it's full for this question. Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Related to the issue of food in schools, is the Cabinet Secretary aware, Honorable Speaker, that schools are on the verge of closing because of lack of food, especially the high schools? And if so, what measures is he undertaking to make sure that capitation is sent to our schools so that they don't close down? Currently, Honorable Speaker, school heads are negotiating with students on meals to jump and even forfeit. That can lead to unrest in our schools. So when is he planning to send capitation to schools to mitigate the issue of imminent closure of our schools? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Bwana Spika, na mimi nina swali kwa waziri wa elimu. Napenda kuuliza, katika shule ya Likoni visual impaired, ambao ni wale ambao wana ulemavu wa macho, toka Januari hawajapata chakula, hawajapokea msaada wote kutoka kwa serikali kama kawaida. Na pia ningependa kuuliza pia Jomvu High School ambao ni Jomvu Girls imejengwa lakini haina perimeter wall na ni shule ya wasichana. Nataka nimuulize waziri amewapangia nini, manake wale ni watoto wa kike na ile ni hali tata. Mahali ambapo wako ni mahali ambapo kuna abiri wale watu wa bodaboda wako wengi na hawa watu wa transport wako wengi, kwa hivyo ni mahali pana shughuli nyingi, na wale watoto wamekaa wazi kabisa, hawana perimeter wall ambao ni ile mzingiro wa fence, na hawana pia maji ya kunywa borehole, na pia hawana wanahitaji muhabara nyingine, manake ile iliyoko ni ndogo wala haitoshi. Kama waziri wa elimu umewapangia nini shule hizi mbili? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to inform all the members of Parliament here that capitation funds which are to the tune of 28 billion. The Ministry of National Treasury was supposed to have given us the funds before Friday last week, but there was a delay. And this morning, I've had an engagement with the Principal Secretary of National Treasury, because it's an issue that is not only concerning me, but the entire country. And I wish to report to the honorable members and the country as a whole that indeed he has confirmed that by tomorrow the funds will be in the ministry, and then thereafter we will be able to disperse the same to all our schools countrywide. And I hope that by Friday of this week, the undertaking I've been able now to get from the Treasury, because they have gotten the funds, is that our schools will be able to receive capitation funds. That is senior secondary schools, our junior secondary schools, plus our primary schools. We are sorry for the delay, but by the end of the week, the money should be in the accounts of those schools. The Member of Parliament has also been able to ask a question about the perimeter wall. Members of Parliament, you are aware that the amount of money we get in the form of infrastructure funds cannot be able to cater for each and every need of the various schools we have in the country. And I really thank the members of Parliament, because in partnership with your CDF funds, we are able to do quite a lot. I will invite the Member of Parliament to come over so that we can be able to discuss probably in the next financial year. We can be able to partner so that we see what CDF can be able to do and what we can be able to do as a ministry. Even water, as I said, Honorable Speaker, during the last time that I was here again, is that yes, the people who have the technical expertise and the knowledge is means of water, we only make a recommendation on the boreholes to be done in schools, and that is one other school that I will ask the Member of Parliament to come over so that we can be able to make the same recommendation to the means of water for treating of our water borehole. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question 1, 2, 3. Member for Teso South, Mary Emase.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question arises from the confusion in the implementation of junior secondary school guidelines by the Ministry of Education. Honorable CS, I draw your attention to page 44 of your guidelines, guideline 8.6 of the guidelines on school meals. And I quote, all learners in the JSS junior secondary school shall be provided with nutritious school meals. 8.61 says that provision of school meals in junior secondary schools shall be the responsibility of the parents or guardians. And 8.62 says that in regard to 8.61, the junior secondary school leadership shall collaborate with the parents to ensure that the school meals meet the nutritional needs of all learners, including those with special needs and disability. 2, that there will be adherence to food storage and preparation standards.
Honorable Mary Emase, you are debating and not asking your question. The procedure is read the question as it appears on the order paper. I think you are reading something different.
The one in the order paper.
Question 1, 2, 3 of 2023 is radically different from what you are saying. Do you have it on the order paper?
I think I have a different order paper, Mr. Honorable Speaker. May I have?
Can somebody furnish the Honorable Emase with the supplementary order paper? Your question 1, 2, 3 of 2023.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question is, could the Cabinet Secretary state the actions the ministry is taking to address the contradiction in guideline 8.61 of the guidelines for implementation of junior secondary school education, which states that provision of school meals in junior secondary school will be the responsibility of parents or guardians, and guideline 8.63 requiring the leadership of junior secondary school to ensure that no learner drops out of school as a result of failure to pay the lunch program fee. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary outline measures in place to ensure that children from needy backgrounds whose parents or guardians cannot afford lunch fee program remain in school and enjoy nutritious meals, considering that guideline number 8.6 obligates the leadership of junior secondary schools to ensure that no child drops out of school as a result of failure to pay lunch fees, which in most schools is nearly Kenya shillings 15,000. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, there is no contradiction because 861 clearly states that providing lunch in our schools, particularly primary and the junior secondary, is the responsibility of the parents. What normally happens, Honorable Speaker, is that the parents, the board of management convenes a meeting comprising of the parents of that particular school. And after discussing and agreeing on a figure, if it is 500, if it is 1,000, whatever figure that each and every parent is supposed to pay towards provision of lunch to their young ones, then they pay that. And we say, even those who don't pay because it's not mandatory, it's optional. We say it cannot be mandatory, it is optional. And even those who are not able to pay, because there are parents who say, yes, me, I'm not going to pay, I will be able to provide food such that my child can be able to carry their food from home to school. When the others are enjoying the school meal, he has carried the food from home. Or there are a few, because as I've gone around the country, sometimes I've had the opportunity of eating lunch with these young ones in a number of schools that I've gone to. Indeed, there are those who have not been able to pay. But what is normally done in these schools, even those who have not paid, Honorable Speaker, you find they are also served, they are actually accommodated in that arrangement. One good thing that happens, Honorable Speaker, is that the number which is not able to pay is not that big. You will get about 85% of the parents have paid, such that the number which has not paid is probably 15%, so they are also carried along in this arrangement, and therefore, when food is being served, they are also served along with the others. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I can't tell honorable members whether those of you on requests Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, earlier the Cabinet Secretary has confirmed to us that the funds are going to start to go to school from tomorrow. But my question is, given the fact that the initial capitation was already below budget, what is the Cabinet Minister going to do to cushion schools now that, especially yesterday, we did get information that the price of commodities has shot up, especially for the basic commodities. So what I want to know from the CS is what plans does he have to ensure that he cushions schools from this, given the fact that the budget is already, capitation is already below budget. Thank you.
Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My follow-up question then is on what the CS has answered in the issue matters capitation and the money that finally goes to the schools, link that with the books and the printing that has now become centralized. My question is there any plan by the ministry to decentralize the printing of books? Because sometimes you get you have 100 kids and there are 200 books of the same subject, Mr. Speaker. And with the CBC model, is there a plan in the future to ensure that books can be handed down to siblings, Mr. Speaker? Because now we have children just dealing with one child and you cannot hand over that book down to the next child. So what is the plan in terms of ensuring that every child has an access to a book and we don't have to wait, the schools can be able to do it without waiting for the capitation? Thank you.
Let me give Anton Oloch.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also want to ask a supplementary question here in relation to what the Minister has said in relation to school feeding program, and to seek guidance from the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary on what steps the Ministry is taking to ensure that informal settlements, and in particular vulnerable informal settlements like Mathare constituency, where majority of the children who go to the public schools come from vulnerable families, have access to free school feeding programs, because even the nominal fee that is charged by the school is not something that they can afford. But while I'm on my feet, and with your permission, Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask a question in relation to, as a follow-up to that question number 120 that was asked by Honorable Mwenje, in relation to the income-generating activity of Umoja 1 Primary School. Cabinet Secretary, what is the legal or regulatory framework that underpins schools involving or engaging in A&A? And I'm saying this against the background of a previous ban by the ministry for schools to hire school buses, so that you avoid conflict of interest and you avoid schools engaging into activities that they may take them away from their core business. What is the legal and regulatory framework underpinning A&I by schools? Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. One is that the price of foodstuffs. Honorable Speaker, one clarification I would like to make. Indeed, the other day, the price of rice, in January, we were paying, last year, we paid 4,500. And then later on, sometime this year, the supply branch kind of increased the price from 4,500 to 7,200. But when we went to the market, indeed, we found the price was still 4,500, a bag of rice, 50 kg. So even now, we are insisting that where schools cannot be able to get the prices at 4,500 per bag of rice, or even beans, they procure from KNTC. And they also compare the prices they are getting out in the market with what we have in our stores in the KNTC, because sometimes these figures that are being given by schools might not conform with what we have at the market prices when you go out to the market, and particularly when they are competitive. The second question, Honourable Speaker, from the Honourable Member of Parliament from Gilgil, is that way back 2017, you remember, Honourable Members, the kind of education reforms that were undertaken. One such reform that was undertaken by government and the Ministry of Education was on the issue of textbooks. Because there before, government used to give money to the various secondary schools and primary schools to purchase textbooks, and unfortunately, it was not being done. The ratio of students' textbooks was such that you find 10 students sharing one textbook. But ever since the time the government changed the system such that it was centralized and the books are purchased from Nairobi and given to the schools, the ratio in schools, and you can be able to confirm this from your respective schools in the constituencies, is almost 1 to 1. And we have said we replace the textbooks every after 4 years. Right now they were given 2018, and I think we are in the process of making sure that we supply, because after 4 years you find they have been worn out and they require a replacement. So as of now, we think out of the research that was done and the report given, the system which is being used now is much better, because almost each and every student in our schools has access to textbooks, and unless probably we carry out another research in order to be able to centralize, because the one we were using before was not working. Honorable Speaker, as I said, the number of counties that we are giving school feeding program are 26. It is right, it is correct, because we have very, very poor people in these informal settlements in Nairobi and other major towns in this country, and we are engaging with the development partners, like one who is now going to come to Nairobi from the Children Investment Fund. It's a UK company, and I think they are going to provide 1.6 billion, which we will be able to cooperate with the county of Nairobi in order to provide food to some of the informal settlements in Nairobi. And we are also trying to make the same efforts in other informal settlements in other towns of this country, such that once we access funds, then we should be able also to provide food to those particular informal settlements. Finally, on A, it's true that schools sometimes generate some income, those who have parcels, those who have a swimming pool like the one I said, and as of now the guidelines we have issued, Honorable Speaker, is that we have Board of Management, and it is the Board of Management which is responsible for managing those funds, and when you consider the amount of money coming from those activities, they are not so big as such. So some of the funds that they get as A are also used for purposes of school activities within their given schools. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Aduma Owor.
Thank you, Mr.
Minister,
Speaker.
we had skipped that question. You can, the question of Aduma Owor, 122. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary to explain the actions being taken by the Ministry to meet acts of nepotism, mismanagement, violations, and the Ministry's guidelines relating to acquisition and disposal of school assets, as well as recruitment of non-teaching and casual staff in schools across the country. Thank you.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the disposal of assets, schools are public entities in terms of the Public Procurement and the Assets Disposal Act 2015 and the Public Finance Management Act 2012. So all the requirements as given in the two acts apply also to the schools, and they are supposed to adhere to the requirements of the statutes on the disposal of school assets. In addition, the provision of the law, the Ministry of Education has also issued guidelines and manuals to guide the disposal of assets, and such assets include unserviceable buses and other vehicles, ICT equipment like computers and printers, farm equipment and furniture. For primary schools, for example, the Ministry developed the Financial Management Manual 2017. The manual outlines the relevant provisions of the law on asset disposal and provides a clear step-by-step process for disposing of school assets. This is as indicated in Unit 6 of the manual. Honorable Speaker, the Basic Education Act 2013 mandates the Board of Management with the responsibility of administering the resources of our school, and in this regard, the Ministry's manual on disposal of all these items is normally approved by the school management boards. The methods of disposal are as outlined in Section 165 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. This includes sale by public tender, sale by public auction, trade-ins, and transfer to another public entity. To ensure compliance with the law and the ministry's guidelines, every school is audited at least annually by the ministry's School Audit Directorate, as well as the Office of the Auditor General. The ministry's field officers also undertake regular inspections of schools in order to ensure compliance. Honorable Speaker, cases where there might be non-compliance, of course, once they come to our notice, we make sure that the necessary remedial action is taken. In respect to the recruitment of non-teaching staff, the Basic Education Act 2013 provides that the Board of Management shall recruit, employ, and remunerate non-teaching staff. As public entities, the boards of management are subject to the values and the principles of public service as outlined in Article 232 of the Constitution and the Public Service on the Values and the Principles Act. These values and principles include ethnic and gender inclusion, merit and open and competitive recruitment. The recruitment undertaken by the boards are subjected to audit by the Ministry of Schools Audit Directorate as well as the Office of the Auditor General. Cases of non-compliance, if identified, then the necessary appropriate action is taken, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome any reports of such violations so that my office can be able to undertake the necessary action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Aduma, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to look at the question, I realized that the question was limited to rather most of the movable assets and did not address the issue of the questions of immovable assets like title deeds, which I realize it is not clear whether the title deeds of most schools are in the hands of the ministry or they are in the hands of the communities or the sponsors of the various schools. Mr. Speaker, I also realize that when we talk about the issue of mismanagement, there are also grants which are meant for special schools. Most of these grants have not been dispersed and schools are suffering. So that is also key. I also observed that there's also the issue of mismanagement in skewed staffing. There's the perception that many of the good principles are poached to some of the schools which are undeserving. And I realized that I had 3 cases in point where the well-performing head teacher of Yala High School was poached and had difficulties landing where he was posted. I also realized that the standards in Maranda High School have been on a downward trend after the head teacher, then Mr. Boas, was removed. We've also have the question of Sagongo High School, where the head teacher was blocked when he was posted elsewhere. So I know the Cabinet Secretary is equal to task. He has the power and the authority, and I trust he'll be able to address that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is a complimentary statement other than question. Minister, you can note that and deal with it. Jared Okela, I see you on the screen.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and on equal footing, I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for Education for coming in to address some of our concerns. Honorable Speaker, I was home during the recess, and I managed to walk around my constituency. And the junior secondary school, to a larger extent, paint a very grim picture. Honorable Speaker, we are alive to the fact that the school classrooms were actually built in high schools. But now the regime came into office and chose to retain our children within the existing primary schools, Honorable Speaker. Whereas we do not have the capacity to physically remove those classrooms from high schools and plug them into primary schools, I would want to know whether there is any plan to have additional classrooms to junior secondary schools within the primary schools where they exist, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, we do have lots of these junior secondary schools strewn all over, but you realize that only one teacher is plugged to a junior secondary school. They undertake 14 subjects, which are compulsory, and probably around 8 elective subjects, Honorable Speaker. Even when you're a genius, it is common knowledge that you cannot handle 22 subjects, Honorable Speaker. So what plans do the ministry have to add additional junior secondary school teachers to augment the shortfall that does exist, Honorable Speaker? And finally, Honorable Speaker, just in brief, Honorable Speaker, the junior secondary schools charge 11,000 shillings going towards lunches for to our children. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether the ministry came up with this figure, 11,000 shillings for lunches. But again, these are the same children who were last year walking back to their homes and coming back to school in the afternoon. So what has so changed that our parents have to dig deep into their pockets to get 11,000 shillings to assist the lunch program? And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, that question by Jared Okello actually falls under the next questions by Mushira and Onchoke, so you can put it on hold. You'll answer it when we get there. Next, question 124. Member for Machakos County, Mama Joyce Kamene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Cabinet Secretary. The first one. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the amount of money that the ministry has received towards the provision of sanitary pads to the school girls each financial year from 2017 to 2018 up to 2022 to 2023? Part 2. Explain the criteria, if any, used by the ministry in distributing the allocations stated above among the counties and specify how much Machakos County received in each of the financial years.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. In the financial year 2017-2018 and the 2018-2019, the Ministry of Education did not receive any money towards the provision of sanitary pads to our girls in our schools. The program was actually then domiciled in the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and the Youth at that particular time. I was not able to get the figures from that ministry, but given time, because we have a one government approach, I can't be able to get the figures. But in the year 2019-2022 financial year, the Ministry of Education received a total, up to 2022, the Ministry of Education has received a total of 1,585,816,000 for this program. The breakdown for financial year is as follows, Honorable Chairperson and members. 2019-2020, we received 375 million. 2020-2021, we received a total of 470,480,000. And 2021-2022, Honorable Chairperson, we received 270,480,000. 2022-2023, we received a total of 470 million. So the total received is as given 1,585,816,000. And the criteria we use in disputing the sanitary pads to the various counties in the country is following the enrollment of girls in grade 6, 7, and 8, because it is that particular age which we consider the girls need the sanitary towels. I have given a breakdown, Honorable Chairperson, of the quantities given out in terms of packets to each and every sub-county in Machakos, and also given each and every year the way those particular quantities were given to each and every sub-county in Machakos, and I think the honorable members can be able to look at the breakdown because we have given as per each and every sub-county in Machakos, and not only Machakos, this information is also available, what we have been able to give out as a ministry for each and every county in this country. Honorable Speaker, sir, so we have also limited this to public schools only because we don't give sanitary pads to private schools, we only give to public schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Joyce Kamene.
Mr. Speaker, as much as I'd like to thank the CS for his answers, but there still leaves a lot to be desired. Because as women reps, we get a lot of calls from these schools. And he has just stated that they supply to the primary schools. But we do have public secondary schools where we know we have so many vulnerable girls that are attending schools. What is the ministry doing about those girls? The criteria they use leave a lot to be desired. They ought to improve because we get a lot of questions. Where are sanitary towels? And we are talking about 470 million. Where is this money going to surely? I wish you'd see the systems so that we can understand why do some schools not get sanitary towels. Thank you.
Bob Owino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Cabinet Secretary for Education, who is a very good friend of mine and was a former colleague, and also a family friend, because the son was my lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Law. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question is about what's currently happening in public primary schools, which is very, very sad, Mr. Speaker. You find that the children, the learners, are being sent away from school because of certain materials which are required from these learners. For example, they are told that they can't go to school without paying money for desks and other costs. As we speak, there's a primary school called Edelwell Primary School in Embakasi's constituency that has sent away 65 learners who can't go to school because the administration is demanding 1,500. And I know that this is affecting the whole country. So if public primary schools are meant to be free, why are we charging these learners of these monies? Number two, the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, which has now become the incompetency-based curriculum. The Cabinet Secretary, can we do away with this system? Because we are wasting our children. They are acting as a control experiment which is going to backfire. You find, Mr. Speaker, that in a primary school, the junior secondary school, one teacher who is trained at the university is supposed to handle a maximum of 2 subjects. But at the junior secondary school, one teacher is handling a maximum of between 8 to 10 subjects. Mr. Speaker, how viable is it for a teacher to prepare for a subject that he will teach the following day. If a teacher is supposed to teach 8 subjects, then a teacher needs 8 hours to prepare for the subject. It means that whatever is being impacted, the knowledge that is being impacted on our learners is equivalent or congruent to liquid intelligence. So, Mr. Speaker, let us not waste our children, and to the Cabinet Secretary, please let us do away with CBC.
What
it is wasting us.
Question?
Oh,
you are making a statement.
could we do away with the CBC? Thank you.
Minister, answer those two.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. Members, as you are aware, the funds given to us in the form of purchase of sanitary pads have given the breakdown each and every year. The money is not enough as much as we would like to cover our secondary schools. Of course, there is need. And this particular function, there is an engagement for us to transfer the funds either to the Ministry of Gender or to the Women Lab. They are aware about the conversation, but I think the question is the amount of funds available for this function is not enough. And it is because of that that we are able to limit ourselves to primary school girls and also secondary school. Of course, there is need. I know there are certain other agencies which have been giving sanitary pads, but we require to allocate more funds, and I will request the Parliament to allocate more funds so that we are able to cater for this need. I'm very categorical, members of Parliament, when it comes to matters to do with illegal levies. We have been able to give a directive as a ministry and as a government that tuition is covered by government, and it is something which is enshrined in the Constitution of this country, Article 53, and primary schools we give a total of 1,420, and no school, no principal, member of Parliament, kindly give me the information. I've already taken action in quite a number of other schools. Recently we had cases in Kirifi, we had cases, I think, in the other county where we have taken disciplinary action against those who were concerned, such that once this information is made available to us, that there is a school charging 1,500, then we will be able to move in immediately and take action. And even our deputy county directors of education, we are facilitating them so that they can be able to monitor, they can be able to go to each and every school, and in case there is such an irregularity, they take the necessary required action. Members, you know, we have been able to work this journey of CPC. We are now on grade 7. We are on junior secondary. It started way back in 2018, and I think as Kenyans, we have been able to discuss on the merits of CPC, such that we have to align ourselves with what is happening not only in the region, we have to align ourselves with the 21st century, and also what is happening internationally and globally. And even when the team that was set up by His Excellency the President, the Presidential Working Party, it went around the country, gathering views from many people in the 47 counties. It came here to Parliament, and the key stakeholders were also engaged in this discussion. And you know the percentage of Kenyans who said, yes, we have few challenges which we can be able to mitigate as a country, but we cannot be able to go back. Let us move on with the CPC. Actually, 68% of the Kenyans, according to that report, said we continue with CPC. There was 15% who said we think we should be able to go back to the 844 system. And there were others who were, of course, in between, but the greater percentage of Kenyans, including experts, said yes, this is the best system. We have few challenges which we will be able to mitigate on, and I would like to assure the members that actually, apart from the teachers we posted, there are also so many qualified teachers, because we have over 75,000 teachers who are graduates in primary schools, and we have upgraded those teachers to also teach in junior secondary schools. So the situation is not as bad as we think. There's a lot of improvement and a lot of good things, and moving forward, we are also mitigating on some of these challenges. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Women Rep Kilifi.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka kuzungumzia kuhusu sodo. Mheshimiwa Spika, sodo ni sanitary towels.
Unazungumzia au unauliza swali?
Nataka kumuuliza swali waziri. Mpango huu wa sodo ni mambo ya kike, na huu mpango ulikuwa kwa wakilishi wa kike wa hii nchi, majimbo 47. Hii pesa Mheshimiwa Joyce Kamene ametaja hapa, milioni 470, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni pesa nyingi sana kutumia kwa mradi. Hii pesa ikipewa milioni 10 kila mwakilishi wa kike ndani ya Kenya hii, ni pesa nyingi za kugawa sodo kwa kila shule katika Kenya nzima. Hii wizara haiwezani na hii kazi. Mimi ndani ya Kilifi ndo nagawanya sodo katika shule. Shule hizi ni za primary, shule za msingi Mheshimiwa Spika, shule za secondary, college zile ndogo tunaita tertiary. Kuna wasichana wa maisha ya chini hawawezi kumudu pakti moja ya sodo. Waziri, tunakuomba ukutane na wakilishi wa kike wote ndani ya bunge hili, tukupe mfumo vipi utatumia hizi pesa milioni 470, milioni 10 kwa kila jimbo. Sisi tutaweza kuendeleza huu mradi vizuri. Wewe ufuatane na haya mambo ya elimu huko kwengine, haya mambo ya sodo ya kike tuachie sisi. Ya pili kuhusu Mheshimiwa Spika, hii moja ni kuhusu CBC. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikwambie wazi, hakuna mzazi anataka huu mfumo. Tusidanganyane na hii percentage tunasikiza hapa. Huu mfumo umegharimu wazazi mfuko mkubwa sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, mzazi anunue viazi, watoto wakafundishwa kupika chips shule. Mzazi anunue nyama, mtoto aende akafundishwe nyama ya mbuzi ni ipi, nyama ya ng'ombe ni ipi. Wabebe kuku, wakaone kuku hai achinjwe. Nyama hizi hazirudi nyumbani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Samaki wakafundishwa samaki, majina wapigwa kule shule na watoto hawali. Mfumo huu umegharamisha wazazi pali pakubwa. Na ukilinganisha sasa, kwa sababu kuna ile ada ndani ya bajeti ya 3% kukatwa, mfumo huu hautaweza kudumishwa ndani ya Kenya hii. Mzazi akatwa 3%, iende kwa kujenga nyumba, kisha anunue kuku, viazi na nyama apeleke kwa mwalimu. Mfumo huu hatutaki. Waziri, tafuta mbinu nyingine. Asante.
Yes, member Kimani. Minutes after this, after that, we go to the next question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think for the last 6 years, I've been a member of this House. The issue of provision of sanitary towels for our girls has always come up in every year. Why do we have to debate it every year? Why can we not have a comprehensive way of ensuring that our girls have sanitary towels in their schools?
Ask the Minister.
Honorable Speaker, I want the men in this House to think. If you bleeded for 3 days minimum every month, I think we'll all drop dead. We will all drop dead. And these girls go through this without menstrual education. They have to use unhygienic things like mattresses and blankets and all those bad things. And we still have to debate this every year? Mr. Speaker, I think we need to put the Cabinet Secretary to account. Let us have a comprehensive plan to make sure that every girl in this country, when they attain the age of puberty, they are supplied with sanitary towels. Mr. Speaker, we used to have condoms in toilets. So if you can provide condoms in toilets, why not provide sanitary towels for our girls? Why do they have to keep begging? Waziri, provide a solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I agree with the concerns of the honorable members that indeed we require now funding and a better structure of distribution of sanitary pads so that they get to our girls. There is a discussion, and for the 7 members of county women members of parliament are aware, where I'm to transfer this function. And I think the 2 committees, Honorable Chair, were to make a decision, the committee on the budget and the committee on education, whether this money should be given to the Honorable county women members of parliament, or whether it should be given to the Ministry of Public Service and the Gender. And that is the responsibility of the 2 committees of this House, because we said the Committee on Education and the Committee on the Budget will be able to make that decision, and whatever decision they make is what we will be able to move ahead with, and we hope that it will be the best one as long as our girls are provided with sanitary towels. CPC, I was in Kirivi, the Member of Parliament is aware. Actually, I have been to Kirivi County 3 times, and I invite her to come when we are in Kirivi. The last I was in St. Thomas, girls, the honorable member, you are aware, and I even had a meeting with the local leaders when I was in Kirifi. Even when I came to Bwana University, kindly come over as we engage our people and we talk to the parents and the teachers concerning CPC. You can also be able to get the kind of information they have concerning CPC, where the teachers say, yes, we want to continue with this, but we require a little bit of capacity building, which we are able to do as a government. Thank you.
Minister, we go to question 125, but as we do so, I've been requested by the Honorable Baba Wino to recognize Lynn Alvaram Lawi and Atifa Safi, Directors of Resources, Advocacy and Distribution, a Canadian international organization that advocates for gender and menstrual hygiene, in the gallery. Honorable Michael Muchira, Old Yorok.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 125 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the number and percentage of pupils who transited to junior secondary schools and Form 1s respectively, and the number that is yet to report within the number that is yet to report with respect to the 2023 academic year? And number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain measures that the Ministry has instituted to locate children who are yet to enroll for either junior secondary schools or Form 1 in order to meet 100% transition, considering that the basic education is an inviolable right to every child? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members. As at 26 May 2023, a total of 1,146,070 runners had reported to term 2 of 2023 to junior secondary schools all over the country, against an enrollment of 1,212,279 in grade 6. This translates to 93% transition rate. Those who had not transited at that date were 5.47%, which translates to 66,209 runners. a total number of 1,155,369 out of 1,206,974 runners are reported to Form 1 as at 26 May 2023, which translates to a transition rate of 96%. A total of 12,051 of the remaining runners reported to TVET institutions, while 4,709 repeated standard 8 crash. This leaves a total of 34,845 runners, representing 3%, who are yet to report to any institution of running. The second part of the question, Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, is that the high transition rate has been a result of various strategic measures that the ministry continues to implement, and of course we would like this to be 100%. Even the 3% which is out, we would like it to go up to 100%. Among the measures we have taken in order to ensure that we have a high transition rate is that we have been spearheading a multi-agency approach team in informing the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, and also in including the honourable members here to ensure that all our runners transit to their respective levels of basic education. We have done this, Honourable Speaker, using the grassroots approach to identify and locate the runners who don't report to school in time and ensure that they resume their studies. And as I've said, the chiefs, assistant chiefs, have been very, very helpful in this. We have done a mopping up exercise to ensure that we encourage 100% transition, and we have also issued guidelines which are designed to facilitate the 100% transition, which include the following: operationalization of our day wings in established boarding primary schools in urban setups and the densely populated areas. We have also been able to allow junior secondary schools within a proximity of 6 to 10 kilometers apart to operationalize shared school transport to ease access to runners and support a day schooling. We have encouraged the establishment of low-cost boarding schools in areas with highly scattered settlements or pastoralist communities where runners have the risk of disability and others subject to availability of funds. We have also been implementing affirmative action in geographically expansive areas, low density and insecurity-prone areas to allow primary schools that lack the requisite enrollment and the infrastructural capacity to domicile junior secondary schools. And as well, directing our runners to be excluded from school uniform, because we said it's not mandatory that we have the new uniform when they transition to another level. The capitation rate, members are aware, in the junior secondary school we set it at 15,042, and also in senior secondary school we set it at 22,240, and also running materials, particularly textbooks, we have achieved a ratio, apart from few areas, of 1-to-1 ratio in provision of textbooks, and also providing school feeding program in order to ensure that those, particularly in arid and semi-arid areas, are able to access school. So, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Speaker, sir, those are some of the measures we have taken, and those are the numbers that we have so far who have transitioned the 2 levels in our basic education. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was only adding to what Honorable Member from Moro had said about the sanitary pads. When he talked about condoms, I wanted just to clarify that condoms are voluntary, but when it comes to menstrual, we were born with it and
Alice,
we live that way. Thank you.
Question time. You are out of
I
order.
was just.
You are out of order. You can approach Honorable Kimana and lecture him on that. John Mutunga.
Honourable Speaker, I rise to congratulate the CS Education for the good work he's doing. But Honourable Speaker, all the members here agree with me that the ministry is facing a very difficult time to implement this new education system. Honourable Speaker, I happen to be involved in making sure that it happens because I'm an investor in education. But I can assure you that I do not know in this country who is clear. And I would like the Honourable CS to tell us the extent to which the ministry is clear on the expected products from this system, where they are going to go, the kind of professionals we are going to produce, and what we shall do with the others. Honourable Speaker, maybe that you can tell us that, because we all seem to be guiding our children into something we are not clear as a country. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Nicholas Turkana East.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this chance to thank the CS and also to ask this question on each of the half-term. Honorable Speaker, half-term has become mandatory in our education calendar. My question is, what added advantage is the half-term getting to adding to our learners in this country? Because, Mr. Speaker, you find a kid who comes from Turkana and he or she is schooling in Mombasa County, is given 3 days to go for half-term. All the way from Mombasa to Turkana East, and it is 3 days. And from Turkana to Mombasa, you can travel for 3 days. That is one way. Coming back 3 days. That's total of 6 days. How fast will this child travel from Mombasa to Turkana for this half-term? This half-term has become very expensive to the parents, and parents go, kids go to school, they come back. Some of them just, the half-term get them on the way, and they go back without even reaching home. It is even becoming dangerous to our learners, because some of our learners meet even strangers on the way back home in the name of the half-term. So can the CS clarify what the half-term is adding to the education of our learners in this country, both in primary school and secondary schools? Thank you, Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Hold, Minister, sorry. Emmanuel Wangwe, you'll be the last on this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the good work he has done, and so far wish him well. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary has put it very clear that there is very good progress in terms of 100% transition, but my concern, Honorable Speaker, is how to retain the 100% transition into the secondary schools. And especially, Honorable Speaker, I wish the Cabinet Secretary to clarify on what his ministry is doing so far, especially to the 2021 Form 1 students under the program Elimu Scholarship Program, where, Honorable Speaker, the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation is yet to remit the funds as we speak today. All the students who went into the Form 1 secondary school 2023 under that program, through his ministry, Honorable Speaker, are yet to receive payment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you can answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to assure my friend, the Honorable Mutunga, that CPC, after the lower level, that is the junior secondary, they transition to senior secondary, where there are three pathways. The three pathways, one is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The second other pathway is social sciences, also commonly known as humanities. The third pathway, Honorable Speaker, is on sports, visual, and performing art. Those who are good in that area will also be able to find an opportunity to pursue their talents in that particular area. And as we said, this is a system with a proper value system which will be able to inculcate certain values to our young people, and also get the kind of competencies and skills which have not been available, and they will be able to compete favorably with the rest of the world, and it is the best way to go. So it is such that when the year comes for them to transition to universities, our universities will be well prepared. Half term, from the time you and me were in school, there used to be half term, because a term goes about 90 to 100 days. Emotionally, if you subject these people continuously without giving them a break, particularly in secondary schools, senior secondary schools, it also gets us into certain other problems, like strikes in schools, some even getting into certain other activities. So emotionally, it stabilizes them when they get probably 3-4 days half term, a break, and it is normally optional, such that there are those who come from far, who can be able to prefer to remain in school. So it doesn't have to mean that each and every one of them has to go. We have been getting the support, RIM scholarships, affecting about 12,000 of our Kenyans, those who come from poor backgrounds. We delayed in getting the funds from the various agencies, various donors, but I think from 2 weeks ago, we have now been able to get the funds, and those who were beneficiaries, we have been able to disperse the funds to the various schools where they joined for their secondary school education, and we will be able to continue with the program because those who are supporting this program are actually supportive of it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, I think the issue of the member for Turkana is whether it is prudent for a child schooling in a national school in Mombasa to be late to go home for half term for 3 days, when it takes 3 days to travel, 3 days to come back. I think the policy issue should be whether you can let such children remain in schools during that half term, as those who can go home can go. Nicholas, isn't that your issue? Yes, Minister.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Actually, as a parent, and I'm sure as a leader, you understand that children from very poor families who are brilliant and go to national schools travel across the country. And to tell them to go to half term for 3 days is actually not very reasonable.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. That's why I said it is actually optional, such that not each and every one of those students goes for half term. They can opt to remain. Some, like the case he has said, if it is a child for Turkana who is in Mombasa, unless the parents are of a category where they are able, and during that particular time they can be able to go to Mombasa such that they take the child from school. If it is the child traveling all the way, it will not be able to make sense, and it's an issue which I agree with, that we should be able to take up, so that those ones who don't have that kind of arrangement can be able to remain in school during that particular time, because we have also that option.
Thank you. Member for Bonchari, Charles Onchoke. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to take the opportunity to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary and his team for appearing and take our questions. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report on the construction of classrooms under the competency-based curriculum phase 2 for the following 10 secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency that were identified in 2022 to host junior secondary schools? 1, Bishop Charles Mugendi, Nyamukenye, Botoro Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya, Ekerubo, Etirio Girls, St. Andrews Mugumo, St. Anne's Nyangoge, St. Charles Rwanga Gesero, St. Francis Nyasagati, St. Peter Suneka, and St. Vincent Omwari. 2, state when the construction of classrooms in Botoro, Ekerubo, and Mugumo secondary schools that were to be ready for use in January 2023 will commence, and state when the ministry will pay the contractors awarded tenders to construct classrooms in the 7 secondary schools above where works are being completed. And 3, outline the plans that the ministry has put in place to construct adequate classrooms for junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency in order to ease congestion that is adversely affecting learning, and specify clear timelines for the same. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is something again affecting each and every member of Parliament.
Just 1 minute. Yes, Donya, what's the problem?
I'm the joyrider.
You are?
You had said that.
Pardon?
Joyrider.
Yeah, but the joyrider comes after the question has been answered.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and honorable members. This is one other thing that affects each and every member of Parliament in this House, because members, as you will remember, we had phase 1 of this program that covered each and every one of your constituencies, and a total of 7,600,000,062 million was utilized in phase 1, which was done between, I think, 2020, 2021, and a total number of 9,721 classrooms in secondary schools were built. And those ones are complete, and the payments have been done. We don't have anything pending. In the phase 2, which the honorable member for Bonchari has been able to raise a question, apart from this area where a total of 12 million is supposed to be used for the classrooms that were given in Bonchari, countrywide, the total number of classrooms which are supposed to be done are 6,495, out of which the contractors who have been contracted to do those classrooms are 6,371 contractors. That is phase 2. The total cost of phase 2 is 2,542,000,000, and a number of those classrooms are complete. A few are not complete, and we are hoping that before the end of the financial year, they should be complete. For Bonchari, the status is as given in the table. Botoro secondary is 80% complete. Kerubo is about 90% complete. St. Andrews Mugumo is at 1 classroom is complete, and the other one is 75% complete. St. Anne's Nyangoge, 2 classrooms are complete. St. Charles Rwanga Gesero is complete, the 1 classroom. St. Francis Nyasagati is complete, St. Peter Suneka is complete, and St. Vincent Omari is also complete. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that we are expecting that the schools will be completed before 30th June, and the 7 schools which have been completed, the ministry is supposed to pay a total of 12,611,521. Of course, you are aware the total cost of a classroom, it was being constructed at a cost of 708,221. And we are here to pay the contractors, not only for Bonchari, but even in other constituencies. We are expecting that the National Treasury will be able to give us the 2.5 billion so that we are able to make payment before the end of the financial year, so that it is not carried over as a pending bill. The third part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that there are 56 junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency with a total of 3,899 runners. Generally, each of the schools has 1 classroom for grade 7 runners, and the number of classrooms where we experience a shortage is 22 classrooms. And I request again, Honorable Speaker, that we will be able to partner with the members of Parliament. In this, we are making an engagement with the World Bank. Hopefully, we should be able to get the funds where we'll be able to do integrated resource centers and also do sanitation facilities in some of the schools. But again, as you access your CDF funds, because your shortage in your constituency is only 22 classrooms, and I hope that we should be able to partner. You do part of it, and probably once we access funds, we can also be able to do a few. Thank you, Honorable Speakers.
Onya, now you can joyride.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You find out that in junior secondary school, they have a new syllabus, they have new teachers, as much as they are not enough. They too have a new uniform. My question to Waziri is the ministry having any plans of having a new administration block for junior secondary school learners? To conclude with the issue of sanitary pads, Mr. Speaker, I would wish the CS to clarify. He told us that as members, we consider that budget. When we consider that budget, are the sanitary pads still going to be issued through the Ministry of Education, or they will be brought back to us as women members of Parliament? Thank you.
Gideon Ochanda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the CS is giving us these details in terms of what was done in the name of classrooms, all of them were done in secondary schools. Where we are now, the grade 7 are still in primary schools. So it means that there are infrastructure that is basically not in use. So can the CS tell us in terms of projection, are we seeing grade 7 and 8 getting back to primary school, or are we seeing grade 7 and 8 joining the secondary schools where the infrastructure is as at now? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sitting next to Nicholas, I can't see you clearly, Honorable Member. You are honorable. Can you give him the microphone? Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Honorable Protas Akuja, MP for Loima Constituency, Turkana County.
I know you. Sorry,
yes.
you're sitting so far.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the CS for Minister of Education is regarding the issue of junior secondary school, and this is specifically on ASAL areas. ASAL areas, JSS is suffering from many problems. You find that in those areas, one teacher is posted to one junior secondary school, and this teacher teaches 14 subjects, and the same teacher is the principal of that particular school. You wonder what time this teacher manages the school and what time he teaches this particular school. And now the question is, does the ministry have any plan to deploy more teachers to this junior secondary school? And secondly, the issue of laboratories. I'm told the CBC is centered on practical science practicals, and this junior secondary school do not have these laboratories. So does the ministry have any plan to construct laboratories in these junior secondary schools to avoid gaps? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Minister, you can answer those three.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. If I start with the last question, I want to assure members, because we are aware that indeed junior secondary schools require laboratories, because we are emphasizing on STEM sciences, and that's why we are engaging, as I said, the World Bank. And our engagement, we hope in another 4 months, they should be concluded. And out of the funds that we are accessing from World Bank, we should be able to do at least 40% of the total requirement of laboratories countrywide. And progressively, we will be able to mitigate on this infrastructural requirement of laboratories. As areas, we are aware, and if Honorable Speaker, the member can be able to confirm the numbers that were given to certain areas, particularly during the recruitment of teachers. In our areas, we get more, and I think we will be able to continue doing that until such a time that we make sure we are able to alleviate on this program of teacher shortage. I would like, probably quietly, the Member of Parliament to share, because I've gone to a number of these schools, I've gone to a number of these areas, including ASAR areas. We have been to Turkana, we went to a number of junior secondary schools, Marsabit, Wajir, and all those areas. And I've not been to a school where I find one single teacher teaching 14 subjects. And kindly, probably you can come to the office we share, because there might be those isolated cases which we require to give consideration to. So that one, Honorable Member, kindly let us engage so that we can be able to get a remedial measure on that. Classrooms in secondary schools, Honorable Speaker, I want to make it very clear here that indeed during this particular time we had a very severe shortage of classrooms in our secondary schools. So even the number of classrooms that have been built in secondary schools are still not enough, because if you go to each and every one of these secondary schools, still they require more classrooms. So it's not that they are not being used. Actually, a number of them are being used up to capacity, and even as we move forward, we are looking into a situation where we require to build more classrooms. There is no single school where we build classrooms which are not being used as of now. New teachers, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, as we move forward, I have made an undertaking that we will be able to recruit more in the coming years as this August House allocates us the necessary funds to do so, because we are aware that indeed we don't have enough teachers in a number of our in a number of our schools. A new administration block for junior secondary school. We have issued guidelines for now. That will be another expense where honorable members will be able to agree with me, the ministry, that we don't have such funds. That is why we said both primary school and the junior secondary school, we have the same kind of administration as of now. The only thing we have changed a little bit is that they have separate school accounts. The junior secondary school operates a separate account from the primary school. But the principal, as of now, we have one principal. As we move ahead, we might change where we have a separate administration for the junior secondary and also for the primary. Otherwise, as of now, it is one principal, one administration block for now, and also, but separate accounts. We have also the board of management. We have one set which is the 17 out of the 17. We have one set which is in charge of the accounts of the junior secondary school and another one in charge of the primary schools. Sanitary parts, I think I've made an undertaking that we have had a discussion with the members of parliament, particularly the county members of parliament, where my member of parliament is also one of them. And once the committee of parliament, the committee of budget, and the committee of education makes a decision, that is exactly what we have to do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo. Sorry, yes, Dr. Nyikal? Yes, let's take one from Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making me a third joyrider. But, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate what our former colleague is doing and how complex the work is. But in reality, if you spend time, this time we were on recess and went around the constituencies, we are having a very hard start. The conditions are actually worse than what we are saying. In terms of teachers, infrastructure for classrooms, now laboratories. So my question to the CS is, can we have in every constituency what the plans are for the number of junior secondaries that are there this time, and those ones we can count, the ones that are coming next year, and two, can we have the number of classrooms that are actually expected in the junior secondary, and three, are we going to have laboratories or workshops in junior secondary? That one, there is no clarity whether we are going to have laboratories or workshops. And whatever it is, can we also have that? So that when we plan with CDF, we actually fall in place with your sub-county directors of education so that there is some harmony on how we use our CDF to support the junior secondary program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Waziri.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyikar. We have made it clear that we require laboratories in the junior secondary schools. And that's why we are having the engagement with World Bank and also requesting the honorable members of parliament in your respective constituencies to prioritize constructing laboratories, because what we will do this coming financial year is 40% of what is required. So in this coming financial year, from the ministry side, we will be able to do the 40%, and probably the other financial year progressively as we proceed, we will also be able to do some kind of percentage. And I hope once you also access the CDF funds, you will be able to do some laboratories within your areas. Second is that the classrooms in junior secondary schools. You know, Honorable Speaker, we domiciled the existing primary schools to be junior secondary schools. And in those particular schools, we had class 7, we had class 8. So it is only that there are a few primary schools which did not qualify to be junior secondary schools, and hence the pupils in that particular school go to a nearby school. So the experience, the classroom shortage we have is not as big as such because we had existing classrooms, because out of the 28,000 primary schools, it's only about 5,000 that did not qualify to be junior secondary schools. But again, we have a report from each and every sub-county, from our sub-county directors, and moving forward, I think we should be able to give you this report we share, and we see what we can be able to do from the point of view of the ministry and from the CDF, what you can be able to do in your areas, because we also have a report on each and every sub-county indicating the shortage we have in terms of classrooms, like the example of Bonchari, which I gave. In the entire sub-county, the shortage we have is 22 classrooms. So in each and every of your sub-counties, we can also be able to provide that information so that you know the shortage you have. As we move forward, you can also be able to provide from your respective CDF funds. Aside areas, Honorable Speaker, I think I made a commitment that we are doing something about aside areas, particularly also giving more funds. To Rukana, the other day we gave 100 million, where we are expanding the existing low-cost boarding schools. We are having one in Laikipia, which the Honorable Member Laikipia North, through sponsors and other CDF funds. We are also opening a boarding school, which we will support as government, and I think we will be able to assist as much as possible those areas that are outside areas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo, member for Mathioya.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 127/2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, one, explain why there is a delay in the distribution of books flagged off on January 27, 2023 for grade 7 junior secondary school learners in public schools, noting that the books ought to have been distributed by February 17, 2023. Two, provide a report detailing the capitation grant received towards purchase of the textbooks and the actual amount spent on the purchase of textbooks in public secondary schools across the country. Three, indicate the strategies the ministry has put in place, if any, to address the challenges faced by the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, expounding on the issue of variance in the number of learners in the system versus the actual learners in certain schools, hence reducing capitation in some schools and occasioning overcapitation in others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. At present, the book distribution for junior secondary schools across the country stands at 90%. The distribution is of 992,884 books to 18,605 schools in the country. In Mathioya constituency, for example, the distribution is at 95% across all running areas. The balance of 5% will be distributed before the end of this month. There has been delays in meeting the initial deadline of 17th February 2023 for various reasons, and specifically, Mr. Speaker, we had 10 publishers who were contracted to supply the books, and there was a delay in providing the books. The 10 publishers are as given in my answer. I don't have to mention each and every one of them, but their delay on their part was attributed to the fact that we have only 10 capable and competent publishers who are capable of printing, and they were not able, because of the quantity and the number of materials that they were supposed to print, to supply the said materials within the timeline that we expected them to do so. And the entire copies of textbooks, I think, were over 17 million. And also, during the time that we had given them the contract, some of them were not able to get the required wood quality papers. They had to import from other countries, and hence there was a delay because of that. And thirdly, also in supply of these textbooks, some parts of the country, like North Rift, when we supply, we have to get security personnel, and because of the kind of insecurity that was going on, there are areas that were not accessible, and we are trying to access those particular areas as of now. And Mr. Speaker, we have also said the distribution of books is actually detected from the capitation from each and every runner, which is provided for 3-day secondary schools and these other secondary schools. And this particular year, we have also said the amount that we will be able to detect from each and every runner to make sure that we are able to provide the required books to all our schools. And the second set of the question was on, we have also given a breakdown on how the books have been supplied, and I think that is in the appendix, which we have been able to supply, indicating where we are and how much we have been able to supply, and those that we are yet to supply, because the publishers and the printers have made a commitment that the percentage we are remaining with, it is only this very short time that we will be able to provide where we have not been able to provide. And the second set of the question is on NEMIS, and as members are aware, the registration of both runners with and without party certificates is captured in NEMIS, but those who access the funds are only those with the party certificates. And as per 60 June 2023, there were 3,883,139 runners in secondary schools who were on the NEMIS platform. Those fully registered, Honorable Speaker, are 3,670,839, which is 95% of the runners on the system. The remaining 212,300 runners, which is 5%, are not fully registered, such that, yes, they are in school, but they cannot be able to access capitation because the necessary details or party certificates have not been provided so far. So we have that figure, and progressively it improves because we insist with internal security, our chiefs and assistant chiefs, to follow up the parents so that we get the documents, so that this number each and every time comes down, is minimized, so that each and every person in a school is able to access capitation funds. Otherwise, 5% of this is the only number which I hope as we move on, we should be able to have this number reduced. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, thank you, Minister. Supplementary by the questioner. Honorable Edwin, you have the first bite to your question. Give Honorable Mugo, or you have no supplementary? Next to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would want first to thank the CS for a very comprehensive answer. My only concern is on the fixed amount that is normally given to each school, because as you are aware, you know, I mean, there is this policy by the Minister of one child, 1 shilling, but you know, if you don't give this fixed amount, the schools that have fewer learners, like day secondary schools, will be affected, especially on the infrastructure issues. So maybe I would want to urge the CS to see what they can do to increase that fixed amount that should be given to each school, especially for administrative activities and for some other basic issues like sports. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the CS for all the questions he has answered. Mr. Speaker, there are quite a number of schools in my constituency, Bear North, whereby the congestion in the dormitories, you find that one cubicle is accommodating more than 6 students. And we wonder, Mr. Speaker, whether we have education officers who are responsible enough to ensure that all the schools are managed in a proper manner, so that the board of management or the board of management, they don't allow the schools to be completely rehabilitated to the extent that boys or girls in those schools are getting extremely congested and they are not reporting these matters to the appropriate offices to ensure proper actions are taken. I want to know whether the guidelines within the Ministry of Education arouse a situation whereby we can get one room shared by more than 6 students, or a situation where we have one bed with 3, or you can call it 3 double-deckers. I don't know whether it's 3 double-deckers.
3 can be double. Call them 3 deckers.
3 deckers.
Yes.
3 deckers, where one bed is at the bottom, middle, and another boy or girl sleeping at the top. That is a situation I have seen in quite a number of schools, and in a situation, Mr. Speaker, which is not going to experience. Thank you.
Phyllis Bartow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Cabinet Secretary is, Eldoret is considered as a workstation under municipality, and the teachers who work in that environment are supposed to benefit from enhanced house allowance. Unfortunately, there is one school in the municipality named Chebarus Primary where the teachers are not benefiting from the same enhanced house allowance. So I wanted the minister to clarify, the Cabinet Secretary to clarify why they are disadvantaged. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister, let's take one more. Women Rep Tarakanisi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak for the special schools. Mr. Speaker, sir, special schools depend on the government entirely for feeding the learners, paying the non-teaching staff, and running the schools. The government gives funding, that is grants and top-ups, to these schools. The last time top-ups was dispersed is December 2021, while grants was dispersed last year in October 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, the management has struggled to run the schools with a lot of challenges. The non-teaching staff have not been paid for several months, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I wish to ask the CES. What measures has your ministry put in place to end the starvation in the special schools and have the learners get the much needed services, especially in Kaironi Primary School Special Unit, Karadan Primary School Special Unit, and Kon Primary School Special Unit, among other special units in the Rakanidi County and the entire country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. As members might be aware, of all our secondary schools in the country, 30% are boarding schools. We have a category of national schools, these county schools, and Kenyans, each and every one of them wants to take his or her child to either national or extra county school. And therefore, those particular schools are actually overstretched. 70% of our schools, Honorable Speaker, sir, which are day schools, you will find they are not as overstretched. And that's why going forward, we say we want to equip more our day schools and also for parents to see the need of taking their children to day schools, because as it is of now, our national schools, we cannot be able to accommodate more than what we are accommodating, because the classrooms, the dormitories, the dining rooms, almost in each and every school, the situation is such that they cannot be able to accommodate anymore. And even the intake, we have given each and every school going forward, because sometimes they also go beyond. We have said unless we have facilities, we don't want our schools to go beyond. Funds, Honorable Member, we are able to do as much as you give us funds, because you know the tuition funds you give us, the money that we get from the August House for extracurricular activities. In actual fact, again, we started the extra activities right from schools, and then they go to sub-counties, to county, to region, all the way to national level. So each and every time we find we have a serious shortfall, and that's why we go for other partners. Like this particular year, in order for us to manage the extracurricular activities, we had to get the support of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, because of the fund they have, which you are aware of, the Sports and the Social Performance Fund, and they were able to give us 276 million. It is what made it possible for us to conduct the extra activities, extracurricular activities that we were able to conduct. Eldoret, Honorable Member, I think I've heard you. In case there's a school within the municipality where the teachers are not enjoying the amount that they are supposed to enjoy in the form of the funds which others are enjoying, kindly bring it to my attention. I've taken note it is Jeparus Primary School, because if it is house allowance, they should be given like other teachers within the municipality. Special schools, we give them an enhanced capitation of 37,000, when the normal ones we give 22 million. And what we normally do, even when we find we get the money in phases, we normally start with the special needs school. So I'm sure that in the course of this week, because we are accessing capitation funds, we will be able to consider those special needs school in giving them the amount of capitation that is designated for those schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
The question by Honorable Gabriel Kagombe. I have a request from him that Kawanjiku from Kiambaa will ask the question on his behalf. Kawanjiku, go ahead. Give Kawanjiku the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask the question 245 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline specific measures being pursued by the government to ensure that children with autism and autism spectrum disorder obtain equal access to education? Question 2, state the modalities used by the Ministry and the Kenya National Examination Council in availing alternative examination modes or avenues for autistic children who are not able to undertake written examinations. Number 3, confirm if the Ministry intends to incorporate all assessment of autistic children in the competence-based curriculum, that is CBC, as well as the engagement of teachers who are specifically trained to handle children with autism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. The set questions I have from the clerk of the National Assembly, which is here, Honorable Speaker.
It doesn't have that question?
It does in the feature, and the question has not been brought to my attention because the questions are already here.
Kawanjiku, you'll tell Kagombe will step down his question to the next time the minister comes. Nonetheless, there is a question by Naisula Lesuda that is not listed but has an answer provided. I've been informed that Jaka Wamboka of Bumula is to ask on her behalf. Minister, there is a question coming.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity first to thank the Minister, who is becoming a friend of this House by responding to our questions.
He's always been. He was a member in the last Parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Question by Honorable Naisula. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the amount of money that was disbursed to each private university for government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023, and the amount of money proposed to be allocated to each private university in the financial year 2023-2024, listing the amount of funds per university. 2, provide statistics of the number of government-sponsored students placed in each private university since 2019 to date, detailing the number per year against each private university and the number of self-sponsored students in each university per year. 3, confirm why the practice was entertained even when there are no sufficient spaces, even when there are sufficient spaces in public universities. And finally, explain how the new model will ensure the survival of public universities, given that the cost of courses priced by the public universities against the undercutting offered by private universities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, sir. 1, there are 3 main reasons that inform the policy of admitting government-sponsored students in private universities. The first reason, Honorable Speaker, is the legal framework. The Universities Act 2012 established the Kenyan Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service Board as per Section 56(1) of the Act, which provides that the placement service shall coordinate the placement of the government-sponsored students to universities and colleges. Section 2 of the same Act defines a university as a university to which a charter has been granted. There is no distinction as to whether it is private or public for purposes of placement of government-sponsored students. At the same time, Honorable Speaker, sir, Section 56(3) of the Act requires the placement service to establish a criteria to enable students access the courses for which they applied, taking into account the students' qualifications and the listed priorities. The law therefore placed value on the choice of a student for purposes of placement, and this is the legal framework for which private universities were based, and I will request the honorable members also to vote the answer, because there was a serious discussion in this honorable house in 2012, and the honorable members, one, if you look at the answer, there was an argument to put the public, and the public item was actually removed by this honorable house, and therefore it provided the loophole in the legal framework for what was now done, admitting government-sponsored students to private universities, to be done since the year subsequent to that act. Mr. Speaker, sir, before 2016, admission to public universities was determined by their available bed capacity. Due to the limited capacity in our public universities, the cutoff points for admission were increased in successive years, rocking out many eligible students. For example, in the year 2014-2015, 165,000 candidates had C+ and above, against a capacity of only 63,740. This so only 38.6% access university education, while 61.4% were left out. In the following year, 2015-2016, 61% of those with a C+ and above were also left out. In this regard, placement to private universities was useful in helping to address the capacity constraints in our public universities and increasing access to university education. Consequently, in the year 2016-2017 placement cycle, for example, the percentage of students placed in universities grew to 93.46% from 39.02%. The preceding year, table Q007, which I've given there, shows the percentage of students placed when capacities in both private and private universities were utilized. So you can see in these years the number has actually gone up because we kind of created room for others to get into private universities, and the number went to 93.46%. In addition, Mr. Speaker, private universities also play a critical role in increasing capacity for competitive and priority programs, both locally and internationally. For example, the total capacity declared for Bachelor of Nursing in the year 2022 candidature in both private and public universities is 1,520, with 555, which is 36.5%, being in private universities. So these Kenyans who are 555 who want to do nursing would not have gotten a place because we don't have capacity in our public universities for this particular course, nursing, because it's a technical area, to access this kind of education if we do not have certain private universities that were offering this particular course. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that after placement of students to universities, the university fund determines and allocates the available funding in accordance with the differential unit cost of the degree program, commonly known as DUC. The DUC has 14 programs, program clusters for undergraduate degree courses. The number of government-sponsored students enrolled in each cluster is used to determine the allocation of the available funds as allocated by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, in the financial year 2022-2023, a total of 89,644 government-sponsored students in private universities were funded at a cost of 3,174,791,604. This translates to 18.11% of the differential unit cost. The recommending funding per student in both public and private universities is 80% of the DUC. So you can now be able to get the difference between 80% and 18.11. The amount that was disbursed to each private university of the government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023 is indicated in Table 9, Q9, which indicates the amount, honorable members and honorable speaker, that was disbursed to each and every university out of almost the 3.2 billion that you did allocate through the means of education. For the financial year 2023-2024, we projected that 18,430 students will be completing their studies, those from private universities. Consequently, the continuing students to be funded in private universities will be 71,214. If the amount allocated remains the same as the allocation in the financial year 2022-2023, then the 71,214 students will be funded at an average of 22% of the DUC. That is the differential unit cost, as opposed to 80%, which of course was the figure which we had committed as a government to be able to allocate. The amount that will be disbursed to each university for the continuing students will depend on the number of students to be funded in the university and the programs that they are pursuing. Because, you know, like the most expensive course we have in the country is dentistry, which in Nairobi University goes at 740,000. So if the government was to give 80% of 740,000, you will be able to see how much it will be. I wish to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, that in the financial year 2023-2024, government scholarships and the new funding university model will not be available to students who choose to join private universities. And I repeat, government scholarships will not be available with effect from this coming financial year for students who make a choice to join private universities. Such students will either be eligible to apply for loans from the Higher Education Loan Support. And the third part of the question is that the number of self-sponsored students in private universities has been declining in successive years since the year 2019-2020 academic year, where it was 54.8%, and compared to the 2022-2023 academic year, where now it has declined to 20%. This can be explained by the fact that an increasing number of students in private universities have been funded by the government in the successful years, and we have also provided a table indicated as Q10, which provides the details of the enrollment. For the same reason of increased government sponsorship, there has also been a decline in the number of self-sponsored students in public universities, from 42% in the year 2019-2020 academic year to 21% in the year 2022-2023 academic year, as shown in the table Q11, which we have been able to indicate very, very clearly. Whether there are enough spaces in public universities, Honorable Speaker, we have said, as indicated in Section 56(1) of the Universities Act, it is the one which mandated the Kenya universities and colleges Central Placement Service to place government-sponsored students in those private universities. The definition of a university distinguishing public from private, and I think that is one of the things that informed the decision that was taken then. The Placement Service has continued to place government students to universities and programs according to their choices, and therefore also something that we have now since rectified, and we will also be sending certain other amendments in due course to this House for consideration. The final part of the question, Honourable Speaker, is that since the financial year 2017-2018, university students have been funded based on the differentiated unit cost of programs. The government was expected to fund 80% of the cost, while the household fund 20%. But over the years, the number of students placed to universities has grown tremendously and remarkably so, posing challenges to the government's ability to meet the funding obligation. Indeed, the government contribution to the cost has been reducing from 66.4% in the financial year 2018-2019 to what it is now, this particular year, 48.11%, meaning we are not able to provide the remaining 32% to our public universities. And in the private universities, the figure is even lower at 18.11%. This has led to financial challenges in many of our public universities, and hence that is why we have been able to come up with a new funding system which we consider will be actually manageable, where government scholarships, we will cover an average of 61%, government loan an average of that 5.5%, and also the contribution an average of 3.1%. And we have been able to, we will be able to use the mean testing equipment that we use in IRON's education board to determine the vulnerable who will be able to enjoy a scholarship of 82% as opposed to a loan of 18%, and the household contribution will be 0, because these are those we consider the highly vulnerable in our society, who we consider that the income is almost 0. Extremely needy, they will be able to get a scholarship of about 70% and a loan of 30%, and the household contribution will be 0, because these are those who have an income of between 0 and 23,000, about 20,000. So they will be able to get up from 23,000 up to around 50. The needy scholarships, we will be able to give 53%, and the loans at the 40%, and the household contribution will be 7%. And finally, the rest needy, anybody we consider enjoying a salary of about 200,000 will be able to get a scholarship of 38%, and if we so wish to get a loan of 55%, and the household contribution will be 7%. The new funding model has various strengths that will ensure the sustainability of our public universities, which are currently undergoing a lot of financial challenges, Honourable Speaker. The funding model is student-centered. Universities will no longer be funded in terms of broad figures. The funding model is based on the actual cost of the program being pursued by the student. This will eliminate the risk of underfunding our universities, as was the case under the DUC model. And from out of our analysis, the cost of programs in our private universities vis-a-vis our public universities, of course, in the various subject areas, we have been able to give examples in the table, like we have given for in the Bachelor of Education and Arts. You can see our private universities we have given for our public universities, in the table, like KCA University, Management University of Africa, Kiriri University, and the Islamic University of Kenya. A Bachelor of Arts degree, 77,790, 78,600, 82,350, and for Islamic University of Kenya, 96,000. And of course, our public universities, which one getting access to our public university will be able to access scholarships and other benefits. We have Kibabii, Kisii, Masai Mara, Chuka University, where the same course, the cost is 122,400. We have given a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, comparing the public universities plus the private. We have given a Bachelor of Commerce, and I think I don't have to go through each and every university because we have had a comparative analysis between the private and the public, so that even in the portal of COOPS, we are putting the information so that when a parent is choosing to go private, he knows the consequences of the decision that is taking. And each and every university, we have also been able to provide this fee structure so that the parents and the students will be aware of the amount of fees and how much the government will be able to pay and how much they will be able to pay. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are various other factors that will help to mitigate against any potential undercutting, and they include the demand for a given university and university programs. Besides, the cost is one such consideration that anyone wanting to join a university takes into consideration. The institutional and the program plan also play a major role. Public universities are therefore expected to position themselves competitively in the market. The placement exercise will prioritize the filling capacities in public universities before any such consideration to private universities, unless one so chooses, because it also depends on the choice of an individual, and as one said, choices have consequences. There is a specialized program sometimes not available, like the one I said of nursing, where we don't have enough capacity, and therefore private universities will also be able to come in handy, particularly in that particular area. On average, Honorable Speaker, the cost of attending private universities will actually be higher than public universities, because students in public universities will receive government scholarships, as I've said. The scholarships will not be available in private universities. A growing demand for scholarships will attract more students and ensure the sustainability of our public universities. The cash flow in public universities under the new model will be better than under the DUC, because the amounts paid for the scholarship and the loans will be higher. The improved cash flow will enhance the quality of running and the training in our universities, because increased funds will facilitate the funding and improvement of the running and teaching resources, making the universities more competitive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Minister for this comprehensive answer. Mr. Speaker, the Minister speaks of the Act, Universities Act, Section 56(1), which talks of COOPS placing government-sponsored students in universities. There is a problem. That's where the problem is. But I also want to put it to the Minister that this specific law does not compel you to place all the students or any students either in public or private universities. For instance, Mr. Speaker, given the fact that an example of this year, the students you are placing in universities, we have enough capacity in public universities to absorb all the public students. And if you went ahead to do that, there is no law you would have broken, because the Act talks of just a placement of students in universities. So the cartels are moving, and we want to depend on your goodwill. And as a committee, we are coming up with amendments to this particular section of the law to ensure that we continue growing our public universities. Two, Mr. Speaker, the government expects all the students to be aware of the differences between public and private universities, which, I mean, you've not made this, you've not carried out proper awareness. Most of these students don't have information. Some of them in rural areas, when they hear about Strathmore and these private universities, they would think they are very prestigious, and they will not factor in the cost element when they are choosing these universities. Therefore, they are disadvantaged, and they choose some of these universities only to realize later that it was a mistake, and they end up dropping out of university. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yes. I want also to note and appreciate the minister that he gave an undertaking to this House through the Committee of PIC, Education and Governance, that unless the parent or the student that are deliberately willing to go to private universities, they are going to first deal with students, they are going to first place students in public universities. And we expect that goodwill to continue, because the cartels are also not sleeping, as I asked Ndindi Nyoro's budget committee not to allocate to this, not to allocate money to private universities unless to those continuing students. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, the good minister. And I can ask Mheshimiwa.
You have no capacity to ask anybody to ask us.
Sorry, Honorable Speaker.
Yes. Jacob Mboka.
Sorry.
Member, as Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me also thank the CS for that answer to that question. Honorable Speaker, you know, the question of public universities is very dear to many members of Parliament, because these universities and university colleges traverse almost all our counties and constituencies. And CS, you might be aware that it is indeed true there are cartels that have been running even certain departments within the Ministry of Education, particularly the university placement services, COOPs, and university funding. And CS, you will note, you just told us that in the next financial year, you will not be funding any new students. But looking at the estimates that were tabled before this House, whereas in the answer that you have given, a total of 3.174 billion was allocated last year and distributed to universities, private universities. In this year's estimates, 4.174 billion has been set aside for the same funding. I'm just trying to reconcile those figures. If then you are not funding new students, why is the money increasing? The money should be decreasing, and decreasing significantly, because you are funding continuing students, and continuing means students who are in first year, second, and third year, because even those who are in fourth year in the last financial year most likely are exiting. Therefore, this budget should be going down by almost a half, not be increased by 1 billion shillings CS. Two, CS, I want to ask you, if you look at your own list, what you have submitted, and I don't want to mention particular universities, but you can tell who are the drivers of these cartels. And you will see the universities that have gotten the largest amount, some 700 plus million shillings, others 350 plus. They commensurate with the proliferation of their colleges around the country, to the detriment of public universities. And you will see instances where public universities and public university colleges have been closed and their premises taken over by private universities. CS, we must be honest with each other, that the cartels that took over the ministry, especially the university funding departments and agencies in your ministry, you must tell us now as a house that now that you came from this house to the executive, you must be ruthless in dealing with these cartels. Because it is true, they have not only misled our children to go to private universities to get half-baked education, but they have also enticed innocent students, as Honorable Wamboka says, from villages who do not know what it will take when they get into those universities, and many of them drop out. But even as they drop out, the money that is allocated to those students continues to be taken to those universities, yet the students dropped out of school. CS, I want to ask you probably at a later date, you must tell this house whether your ministry has instigated or instituted any forensic audits to establish the actual number of students attending classes in those private universities. Because I can tell you, CS, and I speak from my own experience in my own constituency, I have had many students seeking to transfer to public universities. Some succeed, others have moved to KMTCs because we are enticed that you can now go and study in this private university nursing. CS, as you are telling us, that they are going to these private universities because they offer nursing and we don't have capacity in our public universities. Why don't we enhance the capacity of our public universities to offer nursing? Instead of sending our students to these private universities, they go drop out after the first year, they join our KMTCs and other tertiary level colleges, but government continues to pump money into businesses and cartels that took over. And I am not ashamed, CS, to say they took over COOPs, they took over the University Funding Board, and I want you, CS, to just mean business, CS. Let me tell you, CS, just mean business. Conduct a forensic audit. Establish, even within the ministry, who are these rings or cartels that ring around those ministries and manipulate systems to favor private business. And I have nothing against private business. Indeed, some of the most successful universities around the world are private universities. But they do that and they even contribute to the national growth of the economies by even offering scholarships. How many of these private universities have you seen giving Kenyan students scholarships? None. And they are killing our public universities. Yes, I want to beseech you, please, besides establishing and crushing the cartels in COOPs, in the University Funding Board, CS, as you also institute a forensic audit to establish the actual number of students, because you should be paying to individuals who are attending classes in those private universities, not just numbers. What you pay for are numbers, not students who are attending classes on CS. Please, I also want to beg you, CS, in closing, help our public universities to regain their lost glory, like the University of Nairobi. It is embarrassing that there are private universities now that are running the University of Nairobi out of town. True, these same cartels today are celebrating. They are celebrating that the cost of university education in public universities will always be higher than in their private universities. Why? Because of the cost of overheads in public universities. CS, you have a challenge together with your peers in charge of higher education to re-engineer how public universities are also managed, to ensure that they are efficiently managed, governance is proper. Those that have idle assets like land, that you can utilize that land to generate more income and make the cost of public universities much cheaper than those of private universities. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Emase, you had a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The information I wanted to give to the majority leader is that a reduction was made by the Committee on Education for 1 billion, which we did uphold. We upheld it. So our only concern as budget was what happens to ongoing students? Because they were placed there by the ministry through COOPs. They did not choose to go to the private universities. These students are from our constituencies. In fact, right now, Madam Speaker, we are receiving a lot of Harambee, invitations to raise funds for these students. So our concern as members, can we have the ministry tell us what is going to happen to continuing students, so that if it is for ongoing to complete, provide sufficient funding for the ongoing students to complete as we change the model. But we've advised the fathers, the budget committee, that the ministry carries out an audit to establish exact number of continuing students so that we fund the correct number of continuing students. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Njoro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute. Having listened to what members of parliament have said, let me confirm to this House, Madam Speaker, if there is pain in this country, it is in Njoro constituency, Nakuru County. The biggest institution which has raised many women and men in big institutions in this country. It is over 95 dead. My first question to the CS today, how soon can he resurrect the dying Egerton University? Madam Speaker, allow me to say this. The pain with the lecturers, the pain with the investors, the pain with suppliers, the pain within all the surrounding communities, it is so much. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I'm just asking, let us just get the answer. How soon is it going to be raised? The higher education institutions, Madam Speaker, are really dying in this country. We can no longer shy away, Madam Speaker. Let us get the answer. Let us now walk the talk. We can no longer sit again, Madam Speaker, and continue watching the pain which our people are undergoing. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I am asking a question to the CS again. We have so many TVET in this country. The government, which is led by His Excellency the President right now, they are intending to empower youths. How do we empower youths when even the TVET we constructed by contributing CDF funds, they are not even fully equipped? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Baringo North, Honourable Joseph Makila. Let's make it brief so that other people can...
Yeah, I will be very brief, Madam Speaker. A quick one, now that we are talking about university, I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary that there are teachers who marked the KCSE almost 8 months ago, and they have not been paid, and the students are about to join university. What plans do you have to the teachers of Kenya who marked the KCSE 2022? Secondly, Madam Speaker, is the Minister for Education, a good friend, when he came here for the first time, Cabinet Secretary, you made a pronunciation. And some teachers are not listening, and I'm told you also made the same in Mombasa. We said KCSE certificates that are held in schools be released. Can we have therefore the circular and make a public pronouncement in a radio and a television so that the hustlers who were able to complete school will be able to take their certificates? Because there is no relationship between KCSE certificate and fees, because it was paid by NEC and it has no debt at all. And finally, Madam Speaker, is on the issue of congestion. Madam Speaker, one of the premier schools in Kenya, where I'm a parent, Moi Girls, I beseech you, Waziri, and your peers, to visit Moi Girls. The classrooms were built during colonial time, and therefore there are excess students, and their computer lab got banned. Could the minister save the only premier institution of culture in Kenya. And finally, CS, my good CS, there is a school in my constituency called Yatia. That school, the workers have not been paid for the last almost 2 years because the school is unable to get income because the students who are in that school are reduced to 31 because of banditry. What plans do you have to ensure that Yatia Secondary School is brought back to normal because it saves the children in pastoral community? The other things, Madam Speaker, I will visit the CS to share with the Permanent Secretary. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nyando.
Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity and again thank the CS for coming to join us in the chambers to answer to our concerns. Honourable Speaker, I have got a matter that sits at the core of my heart, and it is a matter that I have pursued times more than number to no end, and I'm very glad that the CS is here today. He can help to fast track or to give a substantive answer today. Honourable Speaker, Nyando constituency has got 2 sub-counties, Kadibo sub-county and Nyando sub-county, Honourable Speaker. Nyando sits between 2 constituencies, that is Muhoroni and Nyakach. Honourable Speaker, these 2 constituencies benefit from hardship allowance. We have had a higher hemorrhage of teachers from Nyando constituency to these 2 sub-counties, Madam Speaker, or these 2 constituencies. Madam Speaker, there are certain schools within Nyando, such as Kochieng Primary and Oren, that only have 2 teachers each out of 8 classrooms, with all the many subjects that have to be undertaken by students, Madam Speaker. A multi-agency team visited my constituency, Nyando.
I think let's not tell the story, just get on to exactly what you want.
Yes, cutting across the 2 sub-counties, Honourable Speaker. And they did give a report, which was a seal of approval for Nyando to be gazetted as a hardship zone, Honourable Speaker. Now, we are disenfranchising these students by disruptions. As soon as a teacher reports in Nyando, they're already applying for transfers to these 2 neighboring constituencies, Madam Speaker.
Okay,
I would kindly ask, as I finish, Madam Speaker, because in the interest of time, I kindly ask Waziri to get in touch with his counterpart at the public service, Honorable Aisha Jumwa, to kindly have Nyando gazetted as a hardship zone soonest possible, so that we do not disenfranchise lives of children and teachers that work tirelessly within Nyando constituency. And I thank you so much for the opportunity, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Tindiret.
Thank you, Honourable Madam Speaker.
And
First of all,
you'll also be brief, please.
I want to be brief, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to laud the CS for the good contributions that is made in the House this afternoon. But, Honourable Speaker, I want to just agree with the Majority Leader and the Chair for PIC and Education and Governance on the private universities. When the issue came before our committee, Madam Speaker, the private universities had increased funding by up to 4.1 billion shillings. My committee sat and we realized that that was actually very wrong. And I want to agree with members that the CS should realize that if there are some cartels working with the University Funding Board and the Department of Higher Education, it should take action. Because we reduced that money from 4.1 to 2.4. But we asked again the ministry to furnish us with the list of students in those universities. But I've realized, Madam Speaker, that the number of students are very few. In fact, we are even recommending a House amendment where we need to reduce that money further again by 600 million, so that that money can be used for the SNEs, actually the special needs students who are in some schools across the country, who are actually physically challenged, who have mental issues, and that money can fund them very well. We have incomplete TTIs across the country. and yet some private investors want to take this money. So, Madam Speaker, I want to urge the House that when we bring that amendment or reducing the figure further from 2.4 billion by 600 million, you support it so that actually we do it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I think Honorable Waziri will give you an opportunity, but I realize that most of them were like on the one question. They were on the same topic, so it will be easy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Speaker. I wish to start with private universities. Honorable members have been very categorical on this, and the government is not changing its mind. And I think I even came before the committee and I gave an answer that unless a parent or a student makes a choice to go to a private university, of which the consequences will be that the government will not be able to provide funds to that particular university, as government, as much as possible, we are going to sponsor and support those who are joining our public universities. Two, Honorable Madam Speaker, you are aware that in order to make higher education accessible, and particularly university education, this administration is starting a national open university, and we are starting with 8 programs for the National Open University. I did request the Committee on Education and the Committee on Budget, in actual fact where we require a budget, where we require support of this House is on the National Open University, because it will offer programs. You can be able to get your degree, your PhD from the comfort of your house. So we request, even when it comes to this House for approval, that Honorable Madam Speaker, you fast track, and as I've said, if the allocation to our private universities was 4.1, it is the responsibility of this House to revise the figure downwards. Even 2.4, I think, as my chair of education has said, Honorable Madam Speaker, we require to look at that figure critically, because one other thing we are doing, not only for private universities, but even for public universities, Honorable Chairperson, we found that we don't have the proper figures. We don't have proper data. So we are starting something we call information management system, an equivalent of NEMIS that we have in the Directorate of Basic, such that we can be able to monitor the movement of students, may it be in public universities or our private universities, such that we don't give funds to people who are not in those universities. So we are starting that particular system, but in the meantime, we will also be able to carry out a forensic audit so that we are able to establish the exact number of government-sponsored students in our private universities. Concerning TVETs, Honorable Speaker, members here are aware that we have 3 categories. There are 71 of our TVET institutions which are complete but have not been provided with the necessary required equipment in order for them to be able to undertake their respective mandates. And these ones, the negotiation with China, we are soon getting the equipment because we have signed the contract for provision of those equipments, and I hope that in 3 months' time, at the maximum, we should be able to get and access those equipments, and they will be given the 71 TVET institutions. The second category is in institutions which were undergoing construction, and because of one reason or another, funding was not adequate, and I think we have requested this August House to provide us with the funds so that we can be able to provide those ongoing incomplete TVET institutions, so that we can also be able to complete them and subsequently provide them with the equipment so that they can be able to start. The last category is the 52 TVET institutions, because we have constituencies where we don't have a TVET institution, And I think the amount of allocation you have made is 1 billion this financial year, 2023-2024, and when the funds are provided to us, it means we will be able to do about 20. We cannot be able to do 52 at one go. We do about 20. Come first with the kind of requirements we require. We will be able to cater and accommodate those constituencies which come first, and then the others we will be able to cater in the remaining, in the other financial years. Nyando constituency, Honorable Speaker, I have gone around. I was in Omabay County where I did encounter that problem, Nyatike, and I think I also went to a place in Indarawa. The equivalent, the weather conditions, the climatic conditions are equivalent to the neighboring constituency in Laikipia, and those that had come to my attention, because we normally make a recommendation to the Ministry of Interior, and it is the Ministry of Interior with that of Public Service which gives approval. So, Honorable Member for Nyando, if you write to me, then we can be able to make the recommendation to the relevant ministry for approval for the area to be considered as an hardship area. And if there is any such area, you write to us, and then we will be able to take it up with the other relevant ministries. Again, any cartels, I think I cannot be captured by any cartel. A man who is 6 feet tall, and at my age, Honorable Speaker, my desire and my passion and my commitment is to serve this country. So I'm beyond that, and my officers, my PSs are here. They know my stand, and we are not going to entertain anything like that. But again, the other rider, the other thing I want to mention about private universities, I've had a meeting and engagement with all the vice chancellors of private universities, and I said I'm not about to change the mind. The government has made a stand, and that is what is going to carry the day. But there are 3 private universities which even don't require government funding, and that is Strathmore. Over the years, students going to Strathmore College, government does not send funding. The other such university is Aga Khan University. Government at no time have we sent any single cent to that university, and you can be able to confirm that from the table. USIU, we also never send a single cent. In actual fact, Strathmore University, the administration was telling me the demand they have of students is even much more higher than they can be able to accommodate. So we are asking the other private universities to take the kind of measures these other 3 universities have taken, so that they don't have to rely on the government for funding. My friend, the Njoro Member of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, because I have the information of any individual university, and such other university that I have a lot of information about is our Egerton University. We are asking universities that they go for a niche specialization, because Egerton used to be very good in agriculture and livestock, but now it came to a time where our universities are going for anything and everything, doing each and every program. But the program that we have in Egerton, like all other universities, is not on management and governance, but funding. The amount that we give Egerton University in the form of capitation each and every month, Honorable Speaker, is 185 million. The amount that is supposed to be paid in the form of salaries in any given month in Egerton University is 221. And hence, for almost the last 1 year, they have been paying 60% of the salaries because of the amount of capitation that we give them. It's a matter that we are trying to address as a government, so that we see whether we can be able to improve the level of capitation from what it is now to the specific figure that they incur in each and every month. The other thing that we are trying to do And I think we are coming to Egerton because we have governance management issues with some of our universities. We have had several meetings with the vice chancellors, and I think we have agreed on the way forward. We have had meetings with the chairs, the chairmen, chairpersons of university councils, and even the ones we have chosen ever since we came into this administration. We have undertaken a qualitative process. If a university is in your constituency and you find we have chosen people who are not up to the required standard, then come to me, particularly the ones I've done, because I do a lot of due diligence. The ones we have chosen in the 11 universities, I think there are men and women who are equal to the task, and they will be able to undertake the mandate of the university and bring our university and also regain the rustic glory of our university. Particularly what the honorable member for Kikuyu said, most of us went to their university, and you have seen I've made changes, and in that university there's a new chairperson and the new members of the council, whereas others, if you go to Pwani universities, the caliber, the people we had in the councils, you get at 22, 23, my friend knows. So we have had changes for the better, and I'm sure we will regain our rustic glory. We will be able to have quality education in our universities. Our Kenya National Examination Council, Honorable Speaker, it is this house which is going to assist me as a ministry to allocate the funds, because we have pending bills amounting to over 2 billion now, and I think in a supplementary one, we have made an appeal to this house to allocate the funds because we want to pay our examiners better, we want to pay our suppliers and our contractors, so kindly we hope you will be able to consider and allocate us funds. Release of certificates, members, please help me, because we have made it very clear to our principals, because the Kenya National Examination Act makes it very clear that you cannot withhold a certificate for any other reason. So in case we have any such case, bring it to my attention and we will be able to take action, because there are those Kenyans, even once we issue directives, sometimes they don't respond in a way that they are supposed to. So kindly, in case you have any such cases, bring it to my attention or to my peers, and for sure we will be able to take action on the same. Yet Secondary School, honorable member, I think some of these cases have an open door policy. Members, you know that, and my peers here know that all of us in the midst of education, we have open door policy, such that any member of parliament coming, we will be able to engage. Whatever you want us to do as a ministry, we will be able to have it done. Thank you, honorable speakers.
Thank you very much. I now take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, for the time that you have taken in patiently explaining the answers to the members of Parliament. Thank you and have a good evening. Next order.
Order number 9, special motion, consideration of nominee for appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya.
Chairperson for Finance Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, in its report on the vetting of the nominee for the appointment of the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 6th of June 2023, and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments.
Hold on, honorable members, do allow the PS to go to the waiting room. You can engage him there.
and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, that this House approves the appointment of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the Central Bank, Article 231(1) of the Constitution of Kenya establishes the Central Bank of Kenya. The objects and functions of the Central Bank of Kenya are set out in Article 231(2) of the Constitution, read together with Sections 4A of the Central Bank of Kenya Act. The Bank, Honorable Speaker, shall be responsible for formulating monetary policy, promoting price stability, issuing currency, and performing other functions conferred on it by the Central Bank of Kenya as per Cap 491. Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act 491 establishes the office of the Governor, who shall be appointed by the President through a transparent and competitive process, and with the approval of the National Assembly. The Governor shall be the principal representative of the Bank. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, and the Public Service Commission invited applications from suitable candidates and qualified candidates to apply for the position of Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. This advertisement was published in the print media on the Commission's and on the Bank's website, on the Commission's website on 30th March 2023. The application period closed on the 19th of April 2023, with a total of 24 persons submitting their applications for consideration. 6 candidates, Honorable Speaker, were shortlisted on the 28th of April 2023, and the names of the shortlisted candidates were published in the print media and the Commission's website on the 3rd of May 2023. The advertisement, including an interview schedule and an invitation to the shortlisted candidates to attend interviews. The Commission conducted the interviews on the 9th of May. The chairperson of the Public Service Commission submitted the names of the candidates in order of merit for consideration of appointment to the position of the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 42(1) of the National Assembly Standing Orders, the Speaker of the National Assembly conveyed a message to the House from His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya on the nomination of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, for appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order 42(3)(c) of the National Assembly, the Speaker referred the message to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for consideration. Honorable Speaker, the Clerk of the National Assembly placed an advertisement in local dailies on Friday, the 19th of May 2023, notifying and inviting the nominee and the public of the approval hearing on Tuesday, 30th of May 2023, in accordance with Section 6(3) of the Act. Further, Honorable Speaker, the notification invited members of the public to submit any information on the suitability of the nominee in accordance with Section 6(9) of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act. Honorable Speaker, Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya provides what the role of the Central Bank Governor does, and also provides the constitutional requirements for one to be considered as a qualified candidate for the Central Bank Governor. Honorable Speaker, for the record, the committee did conduct a vetting process for the nominee for the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Kamau Thuge, and were guided by the following statutes. 1, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, Chapter 6 of the Constitution on matters of leadership and integrity, the Leadership and Integrity Act, Cap 182, the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, the Public Service Values Principles Act, number 1A of 2015, and Honorable Speaker, the Public Officer Ethics Act, Cap 183. Honorable Speaker, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 33 of 2011, Section 7 provides for the issues with the National Assembly is supposed to consider in relation to the nomination. 1, the procedure used to arrive at the nominee. 2, the constitutional statutory requirements relating to the officer in question. And 3, the suitability of the nominee for the appointment proposed, having regard to whether the nominee's abilities, experiences, qualities meet the needs of the body to which the nomination is being made. Section 6 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides direction in the conduct of approval hearings, which are that the approval hearings shall focus on the candidate's academic credentials, professional training and experience, personal integrity and background as per Section 6(7), Honorable Speaker. The criteria specified in the schedule shall be used by a committee during an approval hearing for the purposes of vetting a candidate as enshrined on Section 6(8) of the Act, Honorable Speaker. Any person prior to the approval hearing may, with their written statement on oath, provide the clerk evidence contesting the suitability of a candidate to hold the office to which the candidate has been nominated as per Section 6(9). A candidate may, Honorable Speaker, at any time by notice in writing, address to the clerk withdraw the approval process, and candidate's nomination shall end as contained on Section 6(10), Honorable Speaker. The period for consideration of the nomination is spelled out on Article 6, on Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, and that provides that the committee shall put together the nomination and table their report to the House for debate and decision-making within 28 days from the date on which the notification of nomination was given. Section 9, Honorable Speaker, stipulates that where the Houses do not meet on the prescribed timelines, the nominee shall be deemed to have been approved. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Section 6(8) of the Act, the criteria for vetting is comprehensively pursued in the questionnaire and the schedule of the Act that provides the requirements that these candidates are supposed to provide for the committee for the approval, Honorable Speaker. The constitutional provisions that the committee used in the vetting process and arriving at the suitability of the candidate of one Dr. Kamau Thuge for the position of Governor of Central Bank is Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, Honorable Speaker, Article 10(2) of the Constitution on National Values and Principles of Governance, Article 118 of the Constitution, Article 124(4) on the parliamentary approval of public hearings, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Central Bank Act, Cap 491, the Public Service Values and Principles Act, the Public Officer Ethics and the Ethics Act, Honorable Speaker. Having placed the nomination, the advert on the vetting of the nominee for Central Bank Governor, we did ask the several institutions, as outlined by Chapter 6 of the Constitution, to do a letter to the National Assembly indicating the suitability of Dr. Kamau Thuge as contained in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. These institutions are the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Higher Education Loans Board, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. Honorable Speaker, I confirm that we did receive notification and letters from all these bodies, that is the EACC, KRA, HELB, DCI, and Office of Registrar of Political Parties, clearing the Dr. Kamau Thuge as being a suitable candidate as outlined by Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Prior to the meeting, prior to the approval hearing, Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday, 20th of May, we held a pre-vetting exercise and agreed on the way to carry out the nomination, the vetting exercise as contained in our Constitution, Honorable Speaker. During the hearings, Honorable Speaker, we were able to identify the following: that one, Mr. Kamau Thuge is a Kenyan citizen by birth, of ID number 276455149, and was born on the first day of August of 1957 in Kiambu County, and does not hold any dual citizenship. Honorable Speaker, we are able to identify and prove that one Dr. Thuge holds a doctorate degree in economics, a master's degree in economics from Johns Hopkins University, Maryland, USA, having graduated in 1992 for his PhD and 1982 for his master's respectively, and is also a holder of a bachelor's degree in economics from Colorado College, Colorado, USA in 1980. Honorable Speaker, the nominee did inform the committee that he had many years of experience working as an economist since 1985, having started with the International Monetary Fund for over 20 years, and the 12 years he worked at the Kenya National Treasury. Honorable Speaker, Dr. Thuge's specialization was in designing macroeconomic policies, fiscal and monetary and exchange rate, and financing and financial programming. This model was critical in ensuring that the macroeconomic framework involving the real sector, fiscal and monetary sectors, and the balance of payments were internally consistent to serve as a platform for rapid economic growth, poverty reduction, and wealth creation. Dr. Thuge informed the committee that currently he holds the position of being the senior advisor to the president, head of fiscal and budget affairs, having been appointed in 2022. He served previously as a principal secretary at the National Treasury between 2013 and 2019, as a senior economic advisor to the Ministry of Finance between 2010 and 2013. He served also the deputy division chief of the International Monetary Fund between 2008 and 2010. He also served as economic secretary and the head of economic affairs, Department of National Treasury, Kenya, between 2005 and 2008. He was also the head of fiscal and monetary affairs department at the National Treasury between 2004 and 2005. He was also the economist, a senior economist with IMF between 1985 and 2004. And before then, Honorable Speaker, after his PhD, he taught at the University of Franklin and Marshall in Pennsylvania in USA. Honorable Speaker, the nominee informed the committee that he is an accomplished professional in the areas of macroeconomics, public service, which has given him the requisite skills, knowledge, and competence in the financial service sector, suitable for the position we were vetting him for, that of the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, on matters of integrity and leadership, Dr. Thuge informed the committee that in 2019, when he was serving as a Principal Secretary for National Treasury, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution preferred charges against him and his Cabinet Secretary in the National Treasury in relation to the construction of Aurora and Kimorel dams under the State Department of Regional Development. Honorable Speaker, key to note is in 2021, the Office of Director of Public Prosecution terminated the charges against him while turning him into a state witness. And this matter, Honorable Speaker, is pending in court, and the candidate has attended the court proceedings when he is required to do so. The nominee also indicated that he has never been adversely mentioned in any investigation report of Parliament or any committee of inquiry in the 3 years that he served as a Principal Secretary for the National Treasury. Our nominee, Honorable Speaker, is worth 450 million shillings. He does not foresee any conflict of interest because he does not hold any shares in any banks. He has never been a member of any political party. On asked on what the vision for the nominee is of the bank, Dr. Thuge informed us that he noted that the supervision of banks is on real-time basis. Since the digital credit providers were already on board, he oversees a situation where they're going to be a real-time basis oversight of the banks, and especially with the emergence of the digital credit providers and the enormous growth in fintech institutions, Honorable Speaker. The nominee also informed the committee that if appointed the central bank governor, he would endeavor to deal with key issues and on put task on several areas. For example, on the issue of diaspora remittances and how to stabilize the current exchange rate, where the rate of Kenya shillings has really depreciated against the dollar. The nominee informed the committee that he would advise National Treasury to float a local dollar-denominated bond, where the people, especially in our diaspora, would be notified through the State Department of Diaspora Affairs to subscribe. And this process he oversees would stabilize our Kenya shillings as well as inviting domestic investment. On putting to task on whether the current system of importation of our oil in local currency has the pressure on the dollar, the nominee did inform us that this model has reduced the demand on the dollar by $500 million, which means, therefore, that were it not for the consideration of importing our oil from USD to Kenya shillings, then the current depreciation of our Kenya shillings, we are saying, could be way worse. When we asked about the financial services innovations, the nominee noticed and appreciated that there has been an emergence of digital currencies across the world, and this is a concern of the bank, and the bank needs to act in speed to provide the correct regulatory